welcome back to the library. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of World of Warcraft's history. In the world of Warcraft, I think it's safe to say that one of the most infamous zones in the entire game is the Barrens. It might look like a massive empty desert with a pretty boring name, but because of its very central location in Kalimdor, adventurers from all over Azeroth used to converge on the Barrens to do their questing. The endless stretches of dry land mixed in with a massive amount of inexperienced Horde members turned the Barrens into a true World of Warcraft phenomenon. A perfect example of what way too much time under the scorching Kalimdor sun can do to your mind. In this video, we'll look back at the history and the lore behind this iconic zone, and then we'll also have a look at the strange psychological toll it had on the people who passed through here. The history of the Barrens stretches back tens of thousands of years to a time when the Night Elf Empire ruled over the vast supercontinent of Kalimdor. Back then, the Barrens looked nothing like the dry wilderness we see today. It was a lush, thriving forest filled with life and overflowing with arcane energy, which was a direct result of the Night Elves' deep connection to nature and of course their mastery over the arcane, all fueled by the magical source of energy
I just ran straight through the Alliance.
The Well of Eternity was a vast shimmering lake of raw power formed from the very lifeblood of Azeroth's world soul. It came into being when Aman'Thul, leader of the Titan Pantheon, tore one of the old gods from the planet's surface, leaving behind a wound that bled pure energy. The forests that once covered the region where the Barrens are now located were important enough for Queen Azshara to order the construction of an outpost there. The settlement, known as Thenrelor, became a small but vital part of the Night Elf Empire's golden age. So we know for certain that this land was once alive with Night Elf presence over 10,000 years ago. As we all know, that age of prosperity would not last. The Night Elves' thirst for power turned to greed, and that greed eventually turned to madness. A madness that set off the events that would shatter their glorious empire and reshape the entire world of Azeroth forever. Queen Azshara and her loyal circle of highborn Night Elves pushed their experiments with the Well of Eternity too far. Their reckless use of its power sent ripples of energy across the cosmos, echoes that reached the very darkest corners of the Great Dark Beyond, essentially painting a massive target on Azeroth's back. Out amongst those stars, the Burning Legion and their leader Sargeras were on their burning crusade, searching for new worlds to destroy and world souls to annihilate. Through their arrogance, the Night Elves had unknowingly invited the Burning Legion to our precious world. Sargeras set his sights on Azeroth, but to reach it, he would need help from within the world itself. The first of the Highborn to hear the Legion's whispers was Xavius, one of the most powerful sorcerers Azeroth has ever seen and also the High Counselor to Queen Azshara herself. Under commands from the Queen, Xavius drew upon the Well of Eternity's power to construct a massive portal deep within its waters. With the portal complete, Sargeras began sending his agents through. Soon, the Legion's forces clashed with a growing resistance on Azeroth, made up of Night Elves who refused to surrender their world. Known as the Kaldorei Resistance, this force united the people of Azeroth and even the mighty Wild Gods, the Dragon Aspects, and countless smaller races all came together to defend their home. And with that, the War of the Ancients had begun, the desperate battle to save Azeroth from annihilation. The war eventually reached the forests that once stood where the Barrens are today. The Burning Legion swept through the trees, destroying everything in sight, and that continued until they encountered the White Wolf. As mentioned earlier, Azeroth was and still is home to many wild gods, primal beings tied to nature and life itself. Their exact origins aren't fully known, but it's believed that they were created when the Titan Freya spread life and nature across the ordered world. What the Legion didn't realise though, was that they had just entered the territory of the White Wolf Ancient. Goldrin, also known as Logosh, hunted alone, preying on the agents of the Legion passing through the forests. It is said that many of his battles took place right where the Barrens now lie. Eventually though, the sheer number of Legion forces proved too much for the White Wolf. Goldrin was overwhelmed and fell in battle, his wounds too great to recover from. But even after death, his spirit carried on and the story of the White Wolf was passed down through generations of people, slowly becoming a lasting legend. The war would rage on across Kalimdor, but in the end, the Kaldorei resistance prevailed. They pushed the Burning Legion back to their portal at the Well of Eternity, and Malfurion managed to reverse the flow of its power. The well, however, could not withstand this strain. The energies twisting within it reached a breaking point, the Well of Eternity imploded, and the very world broke apart. Nearly 80% of Kalimdor's landmass was destroyed in what became known as the Great Sundering. The vast forests of central Kalimdor were obliterated. Mountains rose and fell, and only scattered pockets of greenery survived. Where there was once endless forests, there were now open skies and scorched earth. Flat plains and dry deserts baked under the relentless sun, and the Barons had been born. During the War of the Ancients, Jared Shadowsong, commander of the Kaldorei Resistance, formed an alliance with a native race known as the Tauren. They fought alongside the Kaldorei Resistance to defend their homeland, and after the Great Sundering, they resettled across the new landscape, in regions we now know as the Barrens, Mulgore, and Desolace, a kind of central belt across Kalimdor. Their skill as hunters of the great beasts of Kalimdor allowed them to live in peace, fully living off the land in a simple, nomadic, hunter-gatherer lifestyle. But even as one of the dominant races of central Kalimdor for thousands of years, the Tauren would eventually face a new and relentless threat. Around 1,000 years ago, they came under constant attack from a savage new enemy, the Centaur. The Centaur are brutal, half-human, half-horse humanoids that roam and terrorize the central plains of Kalimdor. Their civilization is harsh and primitive, bitter and full of hatred. They multiplied quickly and spread across Kalimdor, driving the Tauren from their settlements in Desolace and Mulgore, and beginning a long, brutal war between the two races. Of course, with all of this talk of battles between the Tauren and the Centaur, it's easy to forget that the Barons were still part of central Kalimdor's wider ecosystem. It wasn't completely unusual to see the occasional night elf travelling through the Barrens. It was certainly rare though, and what was even more rare is if they were on their own and crying. To the north of the Barrens lies Ashenvale, a forest that managed to keep most of its magic after the Great Sundering. It became one of the new settlements for the Night Elves, who rebuilt their society among the trees after the fall of their great empire. Their new way of life was built on purity, balance and peace, but even in a society that was striving for harmony, betrayal was still a part of their daily lives. One story tells us of a night elf named Thorin. He returned home one day to find his partner in the arms of another elf. Heartbroken and consumed by despair, Thorin wandered south into the Barrens, searching for something. Peace, answers, maybe even a reason to keep going. But what he found there was much darker. As he cried out in pain, the sands where he stood began to shift. As the sands parted, an axe emerged from the ground, as if the Barons themselves had given him the answer to his problems. Thorin took up the weapon and returned home. In a fit of rage, he committed a terrible act. Realizing the horror of what he had just done, Thorin fled to the coast and hurled the axe into the sea, hoping to bury both the weapon and his guilt forever. We need to fast forward in time here, to the point where the orcs first arrived on Kalimdor. Now, most of us know the major plots of that story. The orcs invaded Azeroth in Year Zero, sacked Stormwind, pushed north into Lordaeron, and after suffering heavy losses, were eventually driven back to the Dark Portal. Many fled back to Draenor, but some remained behind. Those who did were soon captured and placed in internment camps. In one of those camps in Lordaeron, a young orphaned orc named Thrall was being raised as a gladiator slave. He would eventually escape, reunite with remaining free orcs, and begin rebuilding the Horde. And then he was guided by a mysterious vision from an oracle. Thrall led his people across the Great Sea, leaving Lordaeron behind in search of a new destiny. After a quick stop to aid the Darkspear trolls on their island, the orcs finally made landfall on the shores of Kalimdor. Now, we've covered this entire story in much more depth in our Durotar and Orc Origins video, but as the orcs journeyed inland, Thrall's group discovered signs of battle. Eventually, Thrall and his troops met a band of Tauren, led by an aging but powerful chieftain named Cairn Bloodhoof. Cairn praised the orcs for their strength in battle, and after introductions, Thrall told him of the orcs' search for the Oracle, who was said to dwell in the northern mountains somewhere. When Thrall mentioned seeing a large centaur army moving that way, Cairn realised his village was in danger and rushed to defend it. Thrall, eager to help and learn more about the Oracle, followed with his army. Together they fought side by side and drove back the Centaur assault. After the battle, Cairn told Thrall of his people's struggle, how the Centaur had driven off all the prey and forced the torrent across the barren plains in search of safety. Fearing they wouldn't survive the journey, Cairn accepted Thrall's offer to escort them across the plains in exchange for guidance to the Oracle's location. With the Orcs' help, Cairn and his tribe reclaimed the grasslands of Mulgore and built their home atop the mesas of Thunderbluff. The Orcs eventually found the Oracle and learned the truth of their destiny. The Oracle, who was revealed to be the Mage Medivh, urged them to join forces with the humans of Azeroth and stand together against the return of the Burning Legion. Before long, the Legion marched on the Night Elven stronghold near the summit of Mount Hyjal. The remaining defenders of Azeroth, the Night Elves, the humans, the Tauren, the Orcs, all gathered there for one final stand to protect their world. When Malfurion raised the Horn of Cenarius, its call echoed through the forests, and the Wisps responded as one, channeling their energy into Nordrassil. The explosion ripped through the mountain, vaporizing Archimonde and his army, and with that, the Legion's second invasion of Azeroth had ended, and the world had been saved again. After the war, the Orcs returned to the Barrens in search of a place to call their own. Travelling east, they crossed the Great South Fury River and settled along the rocky coast beyond it. There, they claimed the lands as their new home, naming it Durotar in honour of Thrall's father. From that point on, the Orcs began building their great stronghold and shaping a new future for the Horde. But the Orcs weren't the only ones to settle in Kalimdor after the Third War. Jaina Proudmoore and her human forces also made their way south, establishing the port city of Theramore along the eastern coast of Dustwallow Marsh. By the 24th year, the Barrens had become a neutral stretch of land between the New Horde's territory and the Alliance settlements to the south. For a time, there was an uneasy peace between these two factions, but as we know, that calm wouldn't last. Across Kalimdor, hidden agents of the Burning Legion were still at work. One of the surviving demons was a manipulator named Smodlor. He set his sights on a splintered remnant of the old Burning Blade clan, the clan of orcs who had once served the Burning Legion. While most of the clan had now rejected their demonic ties after the war, a small group of them still clung to their old loyalties, and Smodlor easily infiltrated them. But he didn't stop there. The demon began recruiting from both sides of the Alliance and the Horde. To the Orcs, he promised a crusade that would purge the humans from Kalimdor. To the humans, he promised the same mission, to wipe out the Orcs. Through deception, he had become a master of puppets, pulling strings in both factions' camps. Two of his key pawns were Kristoff, Chamberlain of Theramore, and Jaina's chief administrator, and Burks, one of Thrall's trusted warriors. Under Smodlor's orders, Kristoff strengthened the Alliance garrison at North Watch Hold, a fortress on the southern edge of the Barrens. Meanwhile, Burks convinced Thrall to let him lead a force of 600 orcs south to investigate what was happening at North Watch Hold. When Burks arrived at North Watch, he issued an ultimatum to the humans: dismantle the keep and leave the Barrens within the hour, or face annihilation. When the humans refused, Burks ordered the attack. As soon as word reached Orgrimmar, Thrall travelled south and confronted the Chaos himself. He stopped the fighting and publicly denounced Burks. The immediate conflict had been stopped, but the damage was already done between the two factions. Distrust and anger were soon spreading across both continents, and other political events boiled over, to the point where within a year, Azeroth once again descended into open war as the peace between the Horde and the Alliance was shattered. With war spreading across Azeroth once again, the Horde moved to claim the Barrens for themselves. They built outposts, watchtowers and strongholds across the land, the most notable being the Crossroads, which sat at the intersection of two major trade routes in the region, and also Camp Tarayu, a Tauren settlement near the border of Mulgore. With the Barrens serving as one of the only land routes into Durotar, the Horde made sure that the region was well defended against any potential Alliance assaults. The Alliance of Northwatch Hold worked to fortify their stronghold. They kept the fortress well stocked with soldiers and weapons, ready to serve as the first line of defence should the Horde ever march toward Theramore. This growing Alliance presence became a foothold, well, more like a stepping stone for more troops to arrive. In the southern barrens, just where the hills begin to fall away into the Dustwallow Marsh and the path toward Thousand Needles, the Stonespire Tauren lived peacefully off the land. For generations they thrived in one of Azeroth's quieter corners. But their peace wouldn't last. The dwarves soon arrived. Driven by their endless quest to uncover the ancient secrets buried beneath Azeroth's sands and detecting faint traces of titanic energy beneath the barrens, they pushed the Stonespire tribe from their lands and began large-scale excavations in the area. Before long, the dwarves unearthed signs of ancient Titan complexes buried deep beneath the mountains. They established a permanent outpost there, naming the site Baal Modan, and constructed Baaldun Keep to oversee the research and protect the dig site. The Horde, however, wasn't about to let them dig unchecked through Tauren territory. Not long after, travellers across the southern barrens began encountering Gan Stonespire, a displaced Tauren desperate to reclaim his people's home. Gan enlisted Horde adventurers to strike back. Together, they were sent in to Baal Modan and assassinated Prospector Khazgorm, leader of the dig site, a small but symbolic victory for his tribe. And even so, the dwarves pressed on. During the continued excavation, a miner named Feegly uncovered a strange relic known as the Tear of the Moons, a crystal said to hold the power to transform those who possessed it. Before its true nature could be studied, the site's overseer locked it away in Baaldun Keep, but Feegly had already been touched by its influence. His mind became clouded with obsession, and he was soon exiled from the dig site for erratic behaviour. Mad with curiosity, Feegly later approached Horde adventurers on his own, paying them to sneak into Baaldun Keep and retrieve the tear for him. When they returned it, the relic's true power revealed itself. Feegly transformed before their eyes into a monstrous trog. In the chaos, he dropped the crystal and fled into the hills, leaving behind nothing but rumours and questions about the fate of the exiled dwarf and the relic that changed him. The dwarves weren't the only newcomers to claim a piece of the barrens, though. Around the time Durotar was founded after the Third War, Thrall sought the help of goblin engineers to construct his new capital. Among them was Monty Gaslow, a brilliant inventor who had left his home of Undermine to work with the Steamweedle cartel on their ventures across Kalimdor. Word of Gaslow's engineering skill soon reached Thrall, who hired him as the chief engineer overseeing the construction of Orgrimmar. The project was a massive success, and Gaslow earned a small fortune for his work. When the fortress was finally complete, he decided to strike out on his own, heading south into the Barrens. There, on the eastern coast of central Kalimdor, Gaslow founded the port town of Ratchet. What began as a modest trading post quickly grew into a bustling hub, and over time, a haven for smugglers, pirates, and all manner of shady dealings. Despite its dodgy reputation, Ratchet became an essential port for travellers and traders alike, serving as the main sea route between Kalimdor and Booty Bay in the southern eastern kingdoms. But Ratchet wasn't the only part of the Barrens under Goblin control. In the far northeast, there was a small pool of sparkling blue water that once served as a clean and fresh water source for the native Tauren and the local wildlife. But that, of course, didn't last long either. Another goblin cartel soon arrived, eager to claim their share of the Barrens: the Venture Company. The Venture Company are infamous across Azeroth for stripping lands of their natural resources, and while the Barrens might have looked, well, barren, it had something extremely valuable beneath it: oil. The goblins quickly set up a massive drilling operation over the lake, transforming the once pristine oasis into a polluted industrial site known as the Sludge Fen. Pipes, pumps, and smoke filled the air as the Venture Company drew this precious resource from Azeroth. Many adventurers would find themselves tangled up in the company's schemes and the messy politics of oil and power. But despite all of this, further south, even more interesting events were beginning to take place. Whilst all the drama was unfolding across the surface of the Barrens, something else was happening deep beneath it. For generations, rumours had circulated that the dry, sun-scorched Barrens sat on top of a hidden world, vast caverns filled with lush vegetation and fresh water. Most had dismissed this as a myth, until a night elf druid named Naralax proved these stories to be true. Naralax was no ordinary druid. He was ancient, wise, and one of the original founders of the Cenarian Circle, over Welcome back to the library, everyone. Today, our tale takes us into the very depths of Azeroth's history as we uncover the lore behind the Red Ridge Mountains. Located in the southern regions of the Eastern Kingdoms, Red Ridge is encompassed by the rugged mountains of the Burning Steppes to the north. To the south, it shares borders with the perilous Swamp of Sorrows and Deadwind Pass. On the western side of the Red Ridge Mountains mirrors the scenic landscapes of the beautiful Elwyn Forest. But, however tranquil the landscape may seem, peril hides in every corner, presenting us with tales deserving of narration. The narrative of the Red Ridge Mountains starts a staggering 10,000 years in the past, during the War of the Ancients. This major conflict marked the initial arrival of the demonic Burning Legion to Azeroth. The War of the Ancients, among the largest and most costly wars in Azeroth's history, played a pivotal role in shaping the destiny of all life on the planet for millennia to come. The conflict culminated in the Great Sundering, a cataclysmic event that tore apart the once ancient landmass. In the period preceding the War of the Ancients, Neltharion, one of the dragon aspects and leader of the Black Dragonflight, using his goblin servants, crafted a remarkably powerful artifact. A golden, perfect disc attached to a chain forged of elementium, the Dragon Soul, infused with the power of his old god masters, as well as the essence of dragons and demons. The artifact was intended to grant Neltharion control over the other dragonflights, envisioning himself as a god to be worshipped by mortal races. In the climatic battle against the Burning Legion, Neltharion, the corrupted leader of the Black Dragonflight, harnessed the dragons of all the other flights in a magical matrix, amplifying the device's power significantly. However, in a shocking twist, Neltharion revealed his madness, wielding the Dragon Soul to unleash devastation on the Burning Legion, the vulnerable Night Elves, and the other dragonflights. His actions resulted in the death of thousands, as he demanded that all of Azeroth, including the other dragonflights and the Great Aspects, submit to his dominion. Following the completion of this world-shattering event, Malfurion and the 4 remaining aspects cast a spell on the Dragon Soul to prevent Deathwing from wielding it again. They concealed the accursed disc in a location known only to those 4 dragons, ensuring Deathwing's unawareness. This hidden place happened to be the Red Ridge Mountains. A red dragon named Orastraz was entrusted with the duty of safeguarding the Dragon Soul in its hidden resting place, where it remained for millennia, an artifact of immense power capable of dominating the world, concealed beneath the tranquil Red Ridge Mountains. Following Deathwing's return to his lair, he entered a deep slumber. Requiring time for recovery from the injuries inflicted by the use of the Dragon Soul, he rested to restore his strength. Throughout this extended absence, the other dragonflights relentlessly pursued his corrupted Black Dragonflight, driving it to the verge of extinction. In the ancient era, human tribes, part of the Kingdom of Arathor, prospered in the northern lands of what is now known as the Eastern Kingdoms. Arathor's influence endured for over a millennium until it fragmented into the 7 kingdoms. Around 1,200 years before the events of the Dark Portal, noble families from Strom sought to depart from the Arathi Islands, aiming to settle in the more fertile northern regions of Lordaeron. Following suit, led by Faldir, a descendant of Thoradin's lineage, the remaining Arathi descendants embarked on a southward journey to establish Stormwind. Legends in the northern realms spoke of the last remnants of Arathi disappearing into the southern wilds of Azeroth after Arathor's dissolution. Crossing the rugged mountains of Khazmodan, their arduous journey culminated as they settled in the southern reaches of the continent. In a lush valley, they founded Stormwind, swiftly emerging as a self-sustaining power. Initially the smallest and most secluded human nation, Stormwind gradually thrived, cultivating numerous farmsteads in the fertile surroundings. As Stormwind's population expanded, small towns emerged around Elwyn Forest, spreading into Westfall, Brightwood, now known as Duskwood, and of course, the Red Ridge Mountains. Though initially claimed by the humans, the Dwarven Dark Iron clan established its own kingdom in the northern regions of the mountain ranges within Red Ridge. Seeking refuge after the War of the Three Hammers, they recognized that victory over the other dwarves was no longer attainable through conventional means, and anticipating imminent defeat, Thorson, alongside the 7, delved into forbidden knowledge. Approximately 200 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal, they summoned the mighty Firelord, Ragnaros, to the area now recognized as the Molten Core. aiming to obliterate their enemies once and for all. Grossly underestimating the formidable power of the Lord of Fire, Thaurissan, the Seven, and numerous other Dark Ions perished instantly in the ensuing inferno. This event not only claiming a vast portion of the northern ranges of the Red Ridge Mountains, it also gave rise to the imposing Blackrock Spire. Despite all of these events, the humans still managed to flourish in the undisturbed southern regions of the Red Ridge Mountains. This tranquility endured for several decades, only to be disrupted by the arrival of the Orcish Horde following the opening of the Dark Portal. Because of its proximity to the Dark Portal in the Black Morass, situated just south of Red Ridge, this region was among the earliest to face invasion by the Orcish Horde during the First War. The havoc wrought by the marauding Orcish Horde compelled the Alliance to withdraw northward, granting the Orcs unrestricted control over the regions, leading to utter devastation. The Orcs took possession of the land, initiating construction and resource gathering to bolster their war effort against the Alliance. The Horde, in pursuit of absolute dominance, followed the Alliance's path northward, recognizing the strategic significance of the Blackrock Mountain as a crucial geographical obstacle. Upon the Horde's assault on the mountain, the Dark Iron Dwarves, under their Fire Lord Ragnaros, willingly permitted the Horde to seize the spire, establishing it as their new headquarters. When the Dark Portal, bridging Azeroth and Draenor, was opened by Medivh and Gul'dan, the surge of magic stirred Deathwing from his slumber. Observing the conflict between the Kingdom of Stormwind and the Horde during the First War, Deathwing became fascinated and saw the Orcs as a potential means to restore his Dragonflight's former glory. However, a complication arose in Deathwing's grand scheme. The Horde had been weakened by the First War, and if the human kingdoms united, the Orcs wouldn't have the strength to overcome them. Then, years later during the Second War, Deathwing discovered the Dragon Soul's location. He communicated visions to Zuluhead the Whacked, chieftain of the Dragonmaw clan, revealing dreams of taming and riding dragons just like they had done in their native lands, the other side of the Dark Portal. Enticed by the prospect of once again soaring in the sky, Zuluhead couldn't resist. Deathwing guided Zuluhead to the Red Ridge Mountains, where the Dragon Soul lay hidden deep beneath the ground, guarded by wards and the Red Dragon Oristras, untouched for 10 millennia. Despite numerous losses against Oristras, unfamiliar with dragon combat, the Dragonmaw Orcs ultimately succeeded and killed Oristras. Zuluhead tasked the clan's most prestigious warlock, Necros Skullcrusher, with retrieving the Dragon Soul, which he then renamed it to the Demon Soul. Far from the Red Ridge Mountains, Alexstrasza sensed the wards breaking and, growing concerned with Oristraz's silence, journeyed south with several red dragons. Believing that some mortal had found the disc and Oristras was searching for it, she thought assisting him would be easy, but unbeknownst to them, they were walking into Deathwing's trap. From this point onward, some of the stories of Deathwing and some of the stories of the Orcish Horde extend beyond the serene mountains of Red Ridge, narratives that will be recounted on different occasions. But for the purpose of this tale, and to focus on the lore of Red Ridge, we need to skip the intricate details of the First and the Second War. The Orcs were eventually repelled back to the Dark Portal, which was subsequently destroyed by the Alliance. This left scattered Orc clans across the continent. Some were confined to internment camps by the Alliance, while others withdrew into the untamed wilderness of this new unfamiliar land. Two of these lingering Orc clans included the Blackrock clan and the Blacktooth Grin clan. These two clans, assembled with other Horde remnants, predominantly comprised of survivors from the Blackrock clan, and bided their time until the Alliance withdrew its forces from the region surrounding Burning Steppes and the Red Ridge Mountains. Seizing the opportunity, the Orcs covertly infiltrated Blackrock Spire and seized control of the stronghold once again. Gradually, over time, the Orcs gained confidence and explored out into the neighbouring territories, seeking places to rebuild their lives. In time, they formed an alliance with the sinister human warlock Morganth. Together, they took control of the eastern half of the lower Red Ridge Mountains, capturing the human stronghold of Stonewatch Keep. Amid political unrest in Stormwind, Red Ridge's major town, Lakeshire, found itself with minimal military support against the advancing Orcs, and that was up until the return of Reginald Windsor, who assumed leadership in the fight against the Orcs in Blackrock Mountain, becoming an inspiration to many. Around the 17th year after the events of the opening of the Dark Portal, Graydon Thorn and Saya Northbrook married and established their residence in a cottage in the Red Ridge Mountains. They welcomed their son to the family, Aramar Thorn. However, after 6 years, Graydon abandoned the family. 2 years later, Magistrate Solomon declared Graydon dead, enabling Saya to marry Rob Glade, one of Lakeshire's finest blacksmiths. Rob moved from his forge to Saya's cottage, where he constructed a new forge alongside where they were living. Their residence became known as the Glade Cottage, and they eventually had 2 more children. Aram spent his childhood here, learning the blacksmith craft from his stepfather. Along with his dog Suit and his friends Stitch and Willie, they would often play amongst the beautiful landscape that the Red Ridge Mountains offered. Like Westfall and Duskwood, the Red Ridge Mountains were also theoretically protected by the Stormwind Army, and like the other 2 regions, the residents of the Red Ridge Mountains were mostly left to their own devices. However, there was a small guard platoon stationed in Lakeshire to maintain order in the town, and they originally had a garrison of soldiers in Stonewatch, but were later forced out when they were overrun by Blackrock Orcs who were fueled by the evil magic of Morganth. Shortly after the Orcs took over Stonewatch Keep, Morganth turned on his Orcish cohorts. He constructed an arcane tower, the Tower of Ilgalar, and used his powers to build a small army of Shadowhide Gnolls led by Lieutenant Fangor. The Gnolls had one purpose: to serve his malicious bidding. Meanwhile, the Blackrock Orcs continued to assault Lakeshire in their bid to conquer Red Ridge. Lakeshire continued to fend them off, but they were sorely in need of more reinforcements. During one of the Blackrock Orc assaults on the town, Everstill Bridge was badly damaged, making it that little bit more difficult to get supplies from the Kingdom of Stormwind. Foreman Oslo led a crew of bridge workers in repairing the bridge, but their work was slowed due to losing various supplies to the Orc invasions. The Dwarves of Ironforge sent a group to Lakeshire's aid against the Blackrock Orcs, consisting of Princess Moira Bronzebeard and her retinue, but during their journey down, they were ambushed and captured in the Burning Steppes. Sometime later, Helindis Riverhorn gave Magistrate Solomon evidence that the Blackrock Orcs were allying themselves with the Black Dragonfly. Solomon relayed this information to High Lord Bolvar Fordragon and pleaded with him to mobilise the Stormwind army to contend with this grave threat to the kingdom. Bolvar, however, was debilitated from sending Stormwind's thinly spread troops to aid Lakeshire without more proof. Bolvar sent Alliance adventurers to Lady Katrana Prestor, who knew much about dragons and the Dragonkin. However, Lady Prestor thought very little of Magistrate Solomon's claims and advised against providing military aid. Though Bolvar respected Lady Prestor's stance, he could not let Solomon's plight go unheeded and thought of a compromise to appease all parties. So, Bolvar deputized the adventurers and empowered them to solve Solomon's problems, and it was very much needed. Lakeshire was under constant attack from the Blackrock Orcs and the Shadowhide Gnolls. Throughout all of it, the town still lacked proper defense. Solomon and Marshal Maris had to enlist the aid of these adventurers to deal with the hostile Orc and Gnoll incursions, and dealt with them by dispatching their prominent leaders. Meanwhile, agents of Theocritus were sent to dispatch Morganth to end his evil once and for all. Aside from Gnolls and Orcs, Lakeshire also faced a Murloc problem, and occasionally employed adventurers to cull their numbers in order to preserve Lake Everstill's fish stock. After enduring and quelling the Gnoll and Orc threats in the region, the residents of the Red Ridge Mountains faced a period of relative tranquility when compared to the citizens of other regions. There are no notable tales worth mentioning in this narrative during the period between the 25th year all the way up to the Cataclysm in the 28th year, after the events of the Dark Portal. As the adventurers battled in Outland and then set sail for Northrend during the war against the Lich King, these serene mountain ranges remained a relatively safe haven. In the aftermath of the Cataclysm and the resurgence of Deathwing the Destroyer, the Black Dragonfly regained power. Darkblaze, a black dragon, formed an alliance with the Dark Horde, Orc remnants that had returned to the Blackrock Spire after the Second War, and launched an assault on Red Ridge once again. A deputy of the Stormwind army, an adventurer from the Alliance, journeyed to Red Ridge to assist the besieged Stormwind guards and revive the Bravo Company to confront this danger. While engaging in conflict with the Blackrock Orcs, Render's Valley suffered destruction, but the Dark Horde was repelled back to the Burning Steppes once again, and additionally Stonewatch Keep was successfully recaptured. Alongside the victory over the keep, strengthening Red Ridge's defences, the Kingdom of Stormwind erected Tower Watch on the three corners and stationed a garrison of Red Ridge watchmen to patrol there. This part of our narrative now shifts the focus onto that of a weapon. the Diamond Blade. This sacred weapon of the light was granted to Graydon Thorn by Anaru several years prior to the Third War. As the leader of the Order of the Seven Sons, his duty was to protect the Naru, which had bestowed its grace to safeguard Azeroth from the Darkstorm, a formidable magical force capable of unmaking and destroying both the world and its inhabitants. In a tale for another time, the blades shattered, and their fragments were scattered across Azeroth. Over the next 5 years, Graydon diligently searched for the shards using a magical compass that guided him to these crystal fragments. During an attack by their rivals, the hidden Graydon's ship, the Wavestrider, was destroyed and Graydon was captured. Before his capture, he entrusted his magical compass to Aram and Mikasa Flintwill, directing them to the coast of Feralus. Venturing through the forests of Feralus, the flooded Thousand Needles, and the deserts of Tanaris, facing adversaries like Malus and the hidden Aram and Mikasa forged new alliances and discovered crystal shards guided by the compass. We have more details on the tales of Aramar Thorn and his journey through Feralus in our narrative of Feralus. A safe portal can be found in the description below. As the first 3 crystals were found, they seamlessly merged, forming the hilt of the sword. The compass now pointed to its next location, the Redridge Mountains. Sometime later, the Hidden captured Aram, but knowing the importance of their task, Mikasa pressed on with their quest. Acknowledging that the last direction was Lakeshire, 1 year after the return of Deathwing, she and her companions journeyed to the Redridge Mountains. Utilizing the compass's crystal and the guidance of the Voice of the Light, Mikasa located the remaining crystal shards. The initial shard lay in Lakeshire, situated in the Glades' house backyard. The second one resided within a cave northeast of the village, safeguarded by a blue drake named Telagos for numerous years. The final shard was discovered in a mine shaft within the Lakeshire quarry. As she and her allies gathered these fragments, the crystals reconstructed into a complete blade. Holding the blade, Mikasa rallied her friends and allies to convene at the Dark Portal, embarking on a mission to assault the hidden citadel in Hellfire Peninsula. There, Aram and Graydon were held captive, and Malus possessed the hilt of the Diamond Blade. Of course, the tales of the Diamond Blade continue, but are not relevant to the Redridge Mountains, so we will tell them another time. After the occurrences related to the Diamond Blade, and the tales of adventure spread further out from the confines of the Redridge Mountains, tranquility around the lake became a familiar sight once again. A few years later, amidst the events of Death's Rising, the Redridge Mountains faced an assault from the Scourge. In response to this undead threat, forces from the Stormwind Army and the Argent Crusade were deployed to defend the region and its residents. This incursion into the Redridge Mountains signifies the concluding narrative to be recounted from within these mountains. And so, our expedition through the heart of the Redridge Mountains draws to a close, leaving us with a mosaic painted in the hues of ancient conflicts, heroic struggles, and the enduring spirit of those residents who call this region home. In the embrace of these mountains, where landscapes seemingly whisper tales of old, Azeroth's history has unfolded in its raw, unfiltered essence. From the echoes of the War of the Ancients, to the upheavals brought by the Orcish invasions and the cataclysm later on, Redridge has stood as a silent witness to the ever-changing tides of destiny. The return of Deathwing, the resurgence of the Black Dragonflight, the courageous adventures of Aramar Thorn and his crew, the endeavours of battling the Scourge during Death's Rising, all add layers to Redridge's rich history. The shattered and restored symbol of hope, the Diamond Blade, mirrors the indomitable spirit of its people. Let the stories of Redridge resonate in your hearts. In these mountains, where danger and beauty waltz together, a legacy echoes through the ages. Gratitude to all for sharing this exploration with us through Azeroth's past. Until our paths cross again, may your adventures be as legendary as the tales we've unveiled in the hidden corners of the Redridge Mountains. Welcome back to the library, everyone. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of history, where we shall uncover the secrets of the Stranglethorn Vale. In the southernmost reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms, an expansive jungle sprawls to the south of Duskwood, the Stranglethorn Vale. This place instills a sense of fear even in the most seasoned of adventurers. Luckily, some brave adventurers have successfully traversed the jungle's challenges and returned with captivating stories ready to unfold in this very tale. Our journey into the lore of the Stranglethorn Vale commences an impressive 16,000 years ago. In the heart of ancient Kalimdor lay the Well of Eternity, an immense lake pulsating with potent energies, originating from a profound wound in Azeroth's surface. The Well of Eternity was created when Aman'Thul, the High Father of the Titan Pantheon, attempted to extract the old god Yar-Sharaj, inadvertently tearing the world's crust apart. The creation of the well accelerated the cycles of growth and rebirth across the primordial continent, giving rise to sentient life forms. Among the first and the most prolific were the trolls. Led by the Shadow Hunters, these masters of voodoo and shadow magic served as the highest authority, organizing trolls into small tribes. Over time, these tribes eventually expanded and created vast cities across ancient Kalimdor. During this expansion, the trolls held sway over a considerable portion of the land. The Zandalari Empire, built upon a caste system, witnessed the transformation of these castes into distinct groups. Two troll empires emerged, the Amani Empire in the Middle Forest Lands and the Gurubashi Empire in the southern eastern jungles. And as you may have guessed, the empire relevant to today's narrative is of course the Gurubashi Empire. In this time, frequent small wars between the tribes were a common occurrence, often resulting in substantial loss of life. To avoid such casualties, it became common practice for the trolls to relocate to different areas instead of engaging in land disputes. At this point in Azeroth's history, land was abundant and mostly uncontested, allowing trolls a relatively free reign over the territories. However, there was one specific location forbidden to the trolls by their priests and their mystics, a dark mound of blackened earth and stone situated at the base of the Zandalar Mountains. This forbidden site was warned against by Aloha, the beings that were worshipped by the trolls, and severe consequences were foretold for those who dared to disturb it. Despite the taboo, a particular troll named Zando, who had been disgraced and ousted from a position of power within the Gurubashi tribe, was dreaming of revenge. Zando acquired the dagger Xal'atath, and this dagger easily exploited his anger. Guided by the dagger's whispers, Zando, along with a group of loyal witch doctors, defied the taboo and sought out the forbidden mound of black stone at the base of the Zandalar Mountains. Zando believed that the mound held the power necessary to defeat his rivals. To their surprise, the forbidden mound turned out to be the dormant body of Kithix, a slumbering Cathrax. Mistakenly thinking it was Aloha, Zando made blood sacrifices to awaken the creature, manipulated by the corrupted influence of the dagger. Zando dismembered some of his companions, used their blood and organs to awaken Kithix, and buried Xal'atath in the creature's hide, causing it to come to life. Fully awakened, Kithix sought to gain favour with the old gods by destroying this primitive race that had disturbed it, and took control of the Akia, dwelling underground, leading to the Akia and Troll War. The Cathrax incited the Akia into a frenzied state, prompting them to ravage the thriving troll civilizations. Their objective was to initiate the purification of the world for the anticipated return of the old gods. The Akia inundated the troll territories, methodically eradicating a significant portion of the smaller tribes. In response, the Zandalar tribe formed the Empire of Zul, a unified force consisting of the largest troll tribes, including the Zandalari, the Gurubashi, the Amani, and the Drukhari. With the coordination of the Empire of Zul and the aid of wild gods enlisted by troll priests, the trolls successfully halted the Akia's offensive and began driving them back. Dividing their forces into more maneuverable groups, the trolls engaged in an effective guerrilla warfare, hunting down Akia colonies to destroy them. Simultaneously, the Amani tribe pursued the Akia's leader, resulting in a legendary but suicidal assault on the Cathrax. Despite heavy losses, the Amani succeeded in bringing down their formidable foe. While the Akia were not completely driven into extinction, they were unable to continue the war, and the trolls declared themselves victorious. The troll tribes, now far from their original home near the centre of the continent, chose to settle in the newly discovered areas, founding new cities and empires. One of these cities was the infamous Zul'Gurub, located within the jungles of Stranglethorn Vale. In the lore of the trolls, it is recounted that the orb, known as the Stone of the Tides, first manifested along the Stranglethorn coast. Discovered by a wandering troll warrior, the blue stone intrigued him, prompting him to carry it on his journey. As time elapsed, the troll realized the stone bestowed upon him the ability to control water. He could summon water elementals, manipulate the tides, and perform feats reminiscent of the powerful mages of the Kirin Tor. Returning to Zul'Gurub, the warrior showcased his newfound powers to the Emperor, earning the new title of Tidebearer. The troll was granted a place of honour in the court of Gurubashi, faithfully serving the Gurubashi Empire for years to come. However, as time passed, the Tidebearer became increasingly reclusive. The Stone of Tides, with all of its power, also bore a curse. Over time, the bearer of the stone would gradually fade until disappearing from the physical world forever. Concealing this secret from the Empire, the Tidebearer journeyed to the beach where he initially found the stone and walked into the water, vanishing. Many generations later, the stone would wash ashore again, finding a new Tidebearer. This cyclical process continued, with Tidebearers coming and going, much like their predecessors. After the catastrophic events of the Great Sundering, the Gurubashi Empire discovered itself in decline in the southern expanse of the recently formed continent, the Eastern Kingdoms. Although large areas of the jungle, including their ancient city of Zul'Gurub, had survived the Sundering, the trolls had been isolated from their traditional hunting and farming grounds, and with that, famine and poverty spread widely across the trolls' territories. Despite modest improvements over time, the Gurubashi Empire remained a diminished version of its former glory. Regardless of the agricultural struggles, the trolls maintained a semblance of peaceful isolation for many years. The only threat to the Gurubashi Empire trolls during this period of time were themselves. After thousands of uneventful years, around 1,500 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal in the nearby lands, the tale of the Gurubashi Empire would once again unfold. Traditionally esteemed by nearly all troll communities, the ancient lower spirits emerged as a potential salvation for the struggling Gurubashi Empire. The Gurubashi chose to focus their reverence on one specific lower. Responding to their plea, Hakar, the lower of blood, pledged assistance to help the Gurubashi expand their empire and regain prosperity. In exchange, Hakar demanded a substantial number of blood sacrifices. A majority of the Gurubashi trolls eagerly embraced this opportunity, and those who devoted themselves to the Soul Flayer became known as the Hakari. With Hakar's support, they decisively defeated nearby troll packs, Murloc tribes, and other trolls opposing Hakar and the Gurubashi. Captured foes were utilised as a part of the extensive offerings demanded by Hakar. Under the guidance and influence of the Lower, the Gurubashi successfully achieved their goals, conquering vast territories and numerous islands along the coasts of the South Seas. From their island in the ocean, the Zandalari, self-appointed protectors and leaders of the troll race, observed these developments with great interest. Initially pleased with their jungle troll brethren returning to traditional conquest and worship, the Zandalari's joy eventually turned into concern. Delving into myths and ancient accounts, they uncovered disturbing truths. Hakar, also known as the Soul Flayer, infused his followers with a murderous rage. The ensuing carnage, chaos, and destruction perfectly suited the blood god, and he craved more. Recognizing the imminent threat Hakar posed, not only to the Gurubashi but to the entire world, the Zandalari quickly gathered a formidable force and set sail for Stranglethorn. Their mission was to warn the jungle trolls and put an end to the Hakari. Simultaneously, Hakar's demands grew more pressing. He insisted on the initiation of a ritual to summon him directly into the physical world. Recognizing the danger, most of the Hakari started to comprehend the Soul Flayer's unquenchable appetite. By the time the Zandalari arrived, the Gurubashi Empire was already facing internal strife due to Hakar's escalating demands. Upon meeting with the Gurubashi trolls, who shared concerns about Hakar's influence, the Zandalari discovered that a radical faction within the Hakari, known as the Atalai, were heeding to the demands of the blood god and attempting to summon him. Horrified by this revelation, the Zandalari, along with their combined force of some concerned Hakari, launched an assault on the Gurubashi capital, Zul'Gurub, where the summoning ritual was underway. Fierce battles unfolded across the city. Despite heavy losses, the Zandalari-led forces eventually gained the upper hand. Atop of Hakar's blood-soaked shrine, they succeeded in defeating Hakar's avatar and most of his fanatical followers. Though relieved by the victory, the coalition remained vigilant for any signs of Hakar's potential return, fully aware that the lowest spirit had been banished but not truly eradicated from the physical world. Despite the significant losses suffered by the Atalai during the Civil War, particularly in their defeat in Zul'Gurub, a few managed to evade capture and fled into the surrounding jungles. Seeking refuge in the desolate Swamp of Sorrows. They embarked on constructing a new temple, the Temple of Atal-Hakar, with the sole intention of resuming the interrupted summoning that had ceased with the fall of the temple city, Zul'Gurub. For more information about the story and the Temple of Atal-Hakar, you can refer to our tale of the Swamp of Sorrows. A safe portal can be found in the description below. Remnants of the Gurubashi Empire fragmented into distinct tribes and factions, including the Blood Scalp, the Skull Splitters, and any remaining Gurubashi. These factions pursued independent paths, staking claims to territories within the expansive jungles of the Stranglethorn Vale. The dispersed tribes soon found themselves in conflict with each other, and eventually the Darkspear tribe, relatively smaller than the others, were forced to leave the continent and set sail on the seas. Following the Gurubashi civil conflict, the Trolls remained in this fractured state for several more centuries before embarking on a war that would prove devastating for the Trolls of Stranglethorn Vale. Years after the Gnoll Wars, in which the humans emerged victorious, the Kingdom of Stormwind continued to thrive in the Eastern Kingdoms. Enjoying relative peace, Stormwind settlers expanded the kingdom's borders southward, dangerously close to the jungles of Stranglethorn Vale. Inevitably, skirmishes arose between the expanding humans and the territorial Trolls. King Barathon Rin, Stormwind's aging ruler, adopted a non-aggressive stance, hoping to prevent an all-out war. Over time, small clashes escalated into larger disturbances, with organised troll warbands raiding Stormwind's lands. Controversial within the kingdom, Prince Lane, the king's son, advocated for a more aggressive approach, leading to conflict with his father. While King Barathon's efforts were effective, some troll attacks couldn't be stopped. A successful raid into Westfall resulted in widespread destruction, shocking the kingdom. Despite calls for retaliation, the king remained committed to de-escalation. Prince Lane, furious at his father's decision, publicly challenged him. The humiliation galvanized the prince, who, with the support of others like Anduin Lothar, began formulating a plan to infiltrate the Gurubashi lands and end the troll threat themselves. Around this time, the Guardian Medivh, who had been in a magically induced coma for years due to the emergence of his formidable powers, re-entered life in the kingdom. Determined to aid his friends and escape his newfound internal troubles, Medivh joined their covert mission into the jungle troll territory. Having made it through Stormwind's borders unnoticed, the trio utilised Medivh's magic to remain hidden as they ventured into Gurubashi lands. Their objective was the troll leader, Joknon, believing that slaying their leader would plunge the Gurubashi trolls into chaos. When they engaged the troll leader, the battle was brutal, drawing significant attention. Medivh duelled Joknon, who employed dark blood magics that nearly overwhelmed the mage. Forced to unleash his guardian powers, Medivh's spell instantly slew every troll in the area, their screams echoing throughout the Stranglethorn Vale. Shocked at their friend's display of power, Lane and Lothar, accompanied by Medivh, hastily returned to Stormwind. Despite achieving their goal, both men harboured doubts about their longtime companion's well-being. While no surviving Gurubashi jungle trolls could testify about the events in central Stranglethorn, their forces quickly identified the culprits. Enraged by the bold attack, the Gurubashi, led by the warlord Joknon's son, Zannon, united for all-out war against the humans. Mobilizing, they marched towards Stormwind City. Stormwind, accustomed to dealing with minor raiding parties, found its southern defences crumbling under the overwhelming troll numbers. Civilians unable to escape suffered gruesome fates as the Gurubashi advanced. King Barathon, understanding the gravity of the situation, recalled major forces to the city gates. Prince Lane and his companions informed the king of the events in Stranglethorn. Though upset, King Barathon, recognizing the dire circumstances, refrained from punishing the trio. The Gurubashi army arrived outside of Stormwind in terrifying numbers, led by Zannon, who harnessed dark magics to create mutated soldiers. These creatures scaled the city walls effortlessly, wreaking havoc. As the trolls clashed with Stormwind soldiers, the death toll soared. Realizing the dire situation, King Barathon mounted a desperate attack into the heart of the enemy lines, but fell in battle. Lane Rin, now king, grieved his father's death, but refused to succumb to despair. Despite Stormwind's defences on the verge of collapse, Lane pleaded with Medivh to unleash his full powers, and the mage agreed. From atop the battlements, Medivh harnessed his abilities, laying waste to the Gurubashi forces with fire, frost, and arcane magic. The trolls met torturous deaths, while almost the entire Gurubashi army, including warlord Zannon, was annihilated, with only a small handful escaping back to the Stranglethorn Vale. With the troll numbers greatly reduced, the remaining members of the tribe withdrew deep into the jungle in a bid to regain their strength. As the tales of the trolls faded into obscurity, rumours of a bustling city began to surface, gaining popularity among Azeroth's most mischievous inhabitants, Booty Bay. Previously known as Blackwater Cove, this area is a large, sheltered, semicircular cove surrounded by cliffs at the southern end of Stranglethorn Vale. It used to be a small port town inhabited by humans, but was later overrun by the jungle trolls. Eventually, the goblins of the Steamweedle cartel successfully expelled the trolls from the immediate vicinity, establishing Booty Bay as their new operational centre in the Eastern Kingdoms. For timeline reference, this occurred sometime before the First War, as Booty Bay was already under the control of the Steamweedle cartel by then. At a later time, the Dark Portal was opened in the neighbouring lands of the Black Morass. During the Horde's invasion of Azeroth, the majority of their forces engaged in warfare against the humans of Stormwind. However, Kilrog Deadeye led his Bleeding Hollow clan into Stranglethorn Vale, reminiscent of the Orcs' ancestral home in the Tanarn jungle. The Bleeding Hollow were determined to claim Stranglethorn for themselves, but the Gurubashi, unwilling to share their lands, clashed with the invading forces. Despite the Gurubashi being weakened by the previous war, their knowledge of the land allowed them to launch guerrilla campaigns, forcing the Bleeding Hollow to retreat from the region. Warchief Blackhand eventually ordered Kilrog and his Bleeding Hollow clan to withdraw upon learning of the conflict, deeming too many orcs were dying without apparent gain. After the Third War, Booty Bay was still under the management of the Blackwater Raiders, closely affiliated with the Steamweedle cartel. The port provided facilities to any traveller passing through, regardless of their faction. Alongside the renowned Salty Sailor Tavern, it was one of the most popular locations in Azeroth during this time. Booty Bay epitomises the vibrant ambience of a thriving port town, where people from all corners of the world gather for trade, travel, and inevitably engage in gambling, brawling, and thievery. Despite its outward appearance as a bustling and seemingly harmless township, Booty Bay harbours a diverse array of wayward and dubious characters. One notable figure adventurers may encounter is Fleetmaster Seahorn, a key member of the Blackwater Raiders responsible for managing the intricate logistics of the Blackwater fleet. Within the bay's confines, one may also come across individuals who have succumbed to its perils, such as Shaky Philippe, constantly gripped by extreme fear, likely due to owing a debt to the fearsome Seawolf McKinley. Just outside the harbour, Janero's Point features a splendid goblin monument with mysterious origins. Despite the mystery surrounding its creation, travellers recognise its outstretched arms as an unmistakable guidepost during their journeys to the bay. Despite the various events of thievery, gambling, and fighting, these activities were relatively low on the priority list for the leaders of Booty Bay. They were more concerned with a much larger issue: the Bloodsail Buccaneers. Despite their immense peril, the Bloodsail Buccaneers lay claim to the title of the least affluent of all pirate collectives. This circumstance arises from the brutal reality that none survive a Bloodsail assault. Then there is no one left to steal from again. The Bloodsail Buccaneers had plotted to plunder and cripple the Steamweedle cartel-controlled port city of Booty Bay. In preparation for the attack, the Bloodsail Buccaneers took up positions in key locations near the city. They anchored 3 ships along the coastline south of Booty Bay, clear of the town's defensive cannons, with camps also being built along the same coast in preparation for the assault. We will tell the tale of the Bloodsail Buccaneers another time. One story, however, is worth mentioning in this narrative. Dizzy One Eye holds a treasury of tales recounting the daring exploits of the Bloodsail Buccaneers. In times long past, Dizzy lost both his eyes during a fierce battle within Menethil Harbour. Aware of Dizzy's misfortune, a skilled wizard enchanted a glass eye, restoring his gift of sight. However, as years passed, he made his way to Booty Bay. The Buccaneers, amidst a city raid, seized Dizzy's enchanted glass eye. This unfortunate event cast him into darkness once again, marking a second instance of blindness within a single lifetime. Rumours have circulated that a resourceful adventurer managed to retrieve the prized eye, but it is yet to be confirmed. In the 25th year following the opening of the Dark Portal, Stranglethorn Vale, much like many areas of Azeroth, experienced an influx of new adventurers. Many journeyed to the jungle in search of wealth, seeking knowledge, embarking on foreign adventures, and even defending the shores against aggressive pirates. A frequent stop for these adventurers was of course Booty Bay, where various inhabitants, including some with dubious backgrounds, would often dispatch these adventurers on a variety of quests within the jungle. While Booty Bay may be appealing to some individuals, the goblins couldn't resist the temptation to venture out and explore the jungle in pursuit of riches. As part of the infamous venture company, the crafty goblin trade princes had established their mining and deforestation operations here. The goblins had maintained a tenuous hold over these remote facilities, but they remained threatened by the jungle trolls' growing obsession with purging their ancient lands of any and all foreign invaders. However, goblins, pirates and trolls aren't the sole beings one must be wary of when navigating the jungle of the Stranglethorn Vale. The Vale, captivating in its beauty, conceals numerous perils that inexperienced adventurers should avoid facing alone. Inhabiting the Vale are diverse creatures, both formidable and hostile. Among the sapient inhabitants are the previously mentioned Bloodscalp and Skullsplitter trolls, situated in the northwest and east respectively. To the northwest, Yojamba Isle serves as the base for the Zandalar tribe, while an encampment of ogres resides nearby. The ogres held sway over a perilous individual known as Colonel Curzon. Initially a skilled and honourable soldier from Stormwind, he spearheaded an expedition from Stormwind to Stranglethorn Vale. Regrettably, at some point during the expedition, he fell prey to dark magic, his mind succumbing to the possession by Mage, a formidable ogre mage from the local Mosh Og ogre clan, with intentions to exploit Curzon and his men for their own purposes. While the majority of Curzon's men continued to follow their corrupted leader, a faction within his ranks, troubled by Curzon's abrupt transformation, rebelled and established their own group at the rebel camp. In contrast to Curzon's forces, the rebels remained loyal to Stormwind. Lieutenant Doran, leader of the rebels, sought Curzon's demise to bring an end to his madness. Off the southeast coast lies Jagero Isle, home to the colossal gorilla King Mukla. In the southwest, a small Naga population is present, and Murlocs inhabit underwater ruins in the northwest. While journeying through northern Stranglethorn, adventurers may stumble upon Nessingwary's expedition, where brave souls embark on quests to thin the ranks of the local beasts. Hermit Nessingwary, a dwarf widely recognised as Azeroth's most skilled hunter, penned his well-known book, The Green Hills of Stranglethorn, during his exploration of the jungle. This book is entangled with an incident, one that may or may not involve a mischievous monkey. In the aftermath of the cataclysm, Stranglethorn Vale underwent a profound transformation, split by a sizable sinkhole harbouring a turbulent whirlpool named the Sundering at its core. The areas once constituting Stranglethorn are now recognised as Northern Stranglethorn, also referred to as the Stranglethorn Jungle, and the Cape of Stranglethorn. Responding to these changes, the Explorers League established a new alliance encampment named the Explorers League Dig Site. Simultaneously, the goblins laid down extensive oil pipelines in the water and founded a new horde town known as Hard Wrench Hideaway. Another alliance stronghold, Fort Livingston, also emerged, while the Zandalari relocated from Yojamba Isle, transporting their structures with them. Within northern Stranglethorn, adventurers bear witness to political shifts within Zul'Gurub, embark on missions involving raptors, and partake in expanding hunting endeavours under the guidance of Nessingwary. On the other hand, the Cape of Stranglethorn unravels the escalating conflict between the goblin pirates of Booty Bay and their adversaries, the Bloodsail Buccaneers. The township faced a direct assault from the pirates, with buildings set ablaze and a blockade in force. The Brashtide crew invaded the area, causing terror among the inhabitants. The port was ultimately safeguarded by the adventurers. Booty Bay, to this day, continues to stand as the primary city under the control of the goblins. Subsequently, Stranglethorn faced renewed aggression from Zul'Gurub, this time under the command of the Zandalari. Due to its geographical location in the southernmost reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms, Stranglethorn Vale remains somewhat isolated from the upheavals that have unfolded across Azeroth in various wars over the years. There are no grand tales to recount regarding the events following that of the Cataclysm. Instead, only nuanced details that await discovery by adventurous souls like yourself. As we conclude our journey through the vibrant and perilous Stranglethorn Vale, we're reminded that every corner of Azeroth holds tales of adventure conflict, and resilience. From the bustling Booty Bay, a haven for trade and mischief, to the dense jungles teeming with trolls, goblins, and countless mysteries, this land has witnessed the ebb and flow of civilization. As adventurers, we've uncovered the rich narrative of the Stranglethorn Vale, a place where legends are forged, alliances tested, and friendships kindled amidst the chaos. The echoes of battles, the whispers of the wind through the towering trees, and the secrets concealed in every shadow beckon us to embrace the untamed spirit of this jungle. So, as you embark on your own tales of exploration and discovery, may the spirit of Stranglethorn guide you through the challenges that lie ahead, whether seeking treasure, defending against pirates, or unraveling the mysteries that linger in the air. Remember that every step you take in Azeroth leaves an indelible mark on its history. Safe travels, brave adventurer. Your next adventure awaits on the horizon. As we meet again in the next chapter, may the winds of Azeroth carry you to new heights. Welcome once more to the hallowed halls of our grand library. Today our tale takes us into the depths of history, where we shall uncover the secrets of Gnomeregan. Nestled in the rocky foothills of Dunmora, just to the west of the majestic dwarven stronghold of Ironforge, lies a marvel of engineering, the subterranean city of Gnomeregan. This city stands as evidence of gnomish brilliance, ambition, and of course, ingenuity. However, as we delve into today's tale, we'll uncover that this grand history hasn't always been as glorious as it appears. Our account of Gnomeregan's history reaches back to the very origins of Azeroth itself, unfolding with the creation of the Titan Forged. When the Titan Pantheon, a collective of titans entrusted with shaping and ordering worlds, discovered Azeroth succumbing to the corruption from the Black Empire and the Old Gods, they recognized the urgent need to rescue the world soul of the planet. To combat the Black Empire, the Pantheon created the Titanic Keepers. Mimiron, one of these keepers, shared the task of restoring Azeroth to its former glory with the others. Some of these keepers were imbued by the Pantheon's members with specific likeness and powers that could be used to aid Azeroth. After the war with the Old Gods, the Pantheon's titans faced a dilemma in dealing with the Old Gods on Azeroth. They couldn't eliminate the Old Gods without causing devastating harm to the planet, so consequently they opted to neutralize and confine the Old Gods within prisons. The prison relevant to our tale today is Ulduar, located in the very northern reaches of Northrend. To oversee these prisons, the Titans entrusted the role of jailers to the beings known as the Keepers. To aid in the protection of Azeroth, the Keepers initiated the creation of several machines, with one notable example being the Forge of Wills, which can still be found today within the Halls of Stone wing of Ulduar. Mimiron participated in the creation of the Forge of Wills. The forge was designed to infuse Azeroth's dormant world soul with cosmic energies and could draw on the life essence of Azeroth to create sentient life. The Keepers utilized the forge to craft new seed races known as the Titan Forged for reshaping and ordering the world. Initial designs proved overly complex, resulting in the creation of the stone-skinned savages known as the Trogs. The Keepers then refined their designs, giving rise to the kind-hearted Earthen. These were the next generation of Titan Forged that emerged from the Forge of Wills. The Trogs, though troubling with all of their issues, were spared from destruction. Instead, the Titanic Watcher, Ionaea, constructed Uldaman, a subterranean vault serving as a chamber for the Trogs. Another Titan Forged race introduced by Mimiron were the Clockwork Mechanomes, designed directly to serve him. In the distant aftermath, the old god, Yogg-Saron, confined within Ulduar, detected a significant upheaval among the keepers responsible for guarding his prison. Seizing the opportunity presented by the demise of the Pantheon, Yogg-Saron exploited this moment to weaken his custodians by corrupting the Forge of Wills and inflicting it with a curse referred to as the Curse of Flesh. Any Titan-forged entity created by it underwent a transformation into a mortal being, complete with skin and flesh, and it was so powerful it even extended its influence to the preceding generation of Titan-forged. As a result of these events, some of the Mechanomes left their ancestral abode of Ulduar and took on the role of caretakers in the facility of Uldaman alongside the Earthen. Much like their fellow Titan-forged, the Mechanomes were subject to Yogg-Saron's Curse of Flesh. The Mechanomes residing in Uldaman bore the full weight of the curse approximately 3,000 years ago, evolving into the fleshy beings that would eventually be recognized simply as the gnomes. Physically and mentally diminished, these creatures abandoned the halls of Uldaman, seeking refuge in the nearby caverns and mountainous peaks. Driven solely by the imperative of survival and an instinctual relentless pursuit of technological advancement, the early gnomes deliberately abandoned the practice of record keeping, leading to a collective forgetting of their heritage. As the transformed earthen from Uldaman, now embodied as fleshy creatures known as dwarves, ventured into Casmodan, they stumbled upon the gnomes nestled within their mountainous caverns of Dunmore. Captivated by the gnomes' technological prowess and recognizing a shared kinship, the dwarves actively collaborated with the gnomes in establishing the groundwork for what would evolve into the grand city of Gnomeregan. Assisted by the dwarves, the gnomes swiftly constructed a marvel of a city, spanning 4 levels and concealed within the mountains. The city features notable areas and wings, including the dormitory, engineering labs, the Hall of Gears, Tinker's Court, and even a private quarters designated as Sector 17 for the High Tinker. Following the founding of the city around 2,500 years prior to the events surrounding the Dark Portal, the narrative of the gnomes within Gnomeregan gradually fades into the realm of the unknown. It was during these millennia their engineering skills rapidly advanced. During the onset of the First War, as the orcs from Dremel surged through the Dark Portal, human kingdoms, dwarves and gnomes forged an alliance to repel the invaders. In the early stages of the Second War, the Orcish horde advanced into Casmodan, prompting the dwarves and the gnomes to reallocate all of their energy in resisting the Orcish onslaught. Despite the horde besieging both Ironforge and Gnomeregan, the gnomes' inventive booby traps and explosives thwarted the invaders. Gnomeregan, fortified by an impenetrable iron gate, withstood the relentless siege. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Horde War Chief Orgrim Doomhammer diverted the main army northward to Lordaeron, leaving Kilrog Deadeye and the Bleeding Hollow clan to maintain a blockade on Gnomeregan and Ironforge. The defenders held their ground long enough for Supreme Commander Anduin Lothar to liberate them from the rear. It was during these wars a particular gnome distinguished himself. Gelbin Mekatork gained prominence in Gnomeregan with his first and arguably most popular invention, the revolutionary travelling device known as the Mechanostrider. Subsequently, Mekatork continued his prolific work. His creations included the gyromatic micro-adjuster, the repair bot, and also pioneered work on the Deep Run tram. Before the onset of the Third War, the gnomish electorate elected Mekatork as their High Tinker, acknowledging his various technological triumphs and their positive impact on the gnomish race. For many gnomes, he became a role model, embodying the qualities the gnomes sought in a High Tinker. Mekatork's lifelong close friend, Sicko Thermoplug, also ascended through the ranks of the gnomes, mirroring Mekatork's rise. Gaining favour among the intellectual elite, Thermoplug eventually secured the position of chief advisor to his friend, the High Tinker, a brooding yet imaginative engineer. Thermoplug served as Mekatork's advisor for many years. Mekatork's and Thermoplug's friendship, however, was overshadowed by jealousy. Unbeknownst to Mekatork, Thermoplug believed he was the true heir, so to speak, to the gnomish throne, and was convinced that he deserved the position of High Tinker, a fact that would later play a crucial role in the tale of Gnomeregan. Throughout the conflicts that Azeroth witnessed in the years after the opening of the Dark Portal, and up until the Third War, the gnomes, from their technological marvel of Gnomeregan, offered crucial support in weaponry, vehicles, and troops to the broader alliance. However, after Lordaeron fell to the Scourge during the Third War, the gnomes abruptly withdrew their aid. Unbeknownst to the armies of the alliance at the time, this was due to Gnomeregan facing an unforeseen threat from trogs. These beings, awakened by the dwarven excavations around Uldaman. These creatures, drawn to gnomish machinery, infiltrated the city through tunnels. After withdrawing from the Alliance war effort during the Third War, the gnomes refocused their attention on fighting the trogs. After enduring this 5-year siege, the trogs successfully infiltrated Gnomeregan's engineering quarters. This meant the trogs had access to perilous and unstable materials that posed a threat to the city's survival. In a state of desperation and confusion, Mekatork sought assistance from Thermoplug. Thermoplug proposed a drastic plan: detonate a bomb to release lethal radioactive gas into the invaded sections of the city. He presented falsified data to Makator, misleading him about the gas's behaviour, claiming it would only affect the Trogs in the lower city while leaving the gnomes unharmed in the upper urban tunnels, where they were supposedly protected by the clean wind domicilic air filters. Facing limited alternatives and reluctant to seek help from the Alliance, who were in the throes of the Third War, Makator reluctantly agreed to Thermoplug's scheme, perceiving it as a way to end the invasion. When the bomb detonated, the gas spread throughout the entire city, just as Thermoplug had envisioned. However, the reality surpassed his expectations. While the gas did kill some Trogs, it proved devastating to the gnomes as well. Instead of remaining unharmed, many gnomes waiting in their homes perished as the toxic clouds passed through the filters. The gas's potency exceeded Thermoplug's calculations, resulting in the death of nearly 80% of the gnomish population within the following days. The remaining survivors suffered mutations, transforming them into the insane leper gnomes. Contrary to Thermoplug's intentions, the catastrophe did not turn the gnomes against Mekatork. Instead, they continued to support him as their leader. Mekatork led the healthy survivors in evacuating Gnomeregan and seeking refuge in Ironforge. Conflicting accounts suggest that Thermoplug was either left behind, trapped in the city he had devastated, or disappeared shortly after the evacuation. Regardless, the radiation transformed Thermoplug into a leper gnome, rendering him completely insane. Seizing control of the toxic city, Thermoplug declared himself the new techno overlord and proclaimed himself the king of the gnomes, easily recruiting other leper gnomes to serve under his rule. King Magni Bronzebeard extended asylum to the gnomes who sought refuge and allocated a dedicated district in Ironforge for their settlement, a space that Mekatork was already acquainted with due to his prior involvement with the Deep Run tram. This area was transformed into Tinkertown. It was only upon reflection that Mekatork fully grasped the extent of his old friend's madness after the evacuation. As revelations about Thermoplug's deceitful schemes gradually came to light, it was rumoured that Mekatork's once trusted advisor, Thermoplug, had been corrupted by greed and the desire to become king of the gnomes, and ultimately betrayed his people by allowing the Trog invasion to happen. Thermoplug ruled over Gnomeregan from the Tinker's court, piloting a colossal, cauldron-shaped prototype armor suit. Surrounded by deranged leper gnomes and Trog minions, he defended his reign against any surface intrusion with ruthless intelligence. Despite his continual production of new inventions, Thermoplug's impatience persisted. Each creation was swiftly deployed without thorough safety and effectiveness testing. The Electrocutioner 6000, his initial venture into harnessing electricity as a weapon via a supercharged mechanotank, resulted in the survival of only one pilot. Alongside this, safeguarding the blueprints to a new super rig in the Tinker's Court safe, Thermoplug maintained connections with the Dark Iron clan, evident through the presence of the Dark Iron agents and the Dark Iron ambassador in Gnomeregan. The Dark Irons collaborated in the creation of the mentioned rig. Indications also suggest that Thermoplug might have been researching a cure for the leper gnome's condition. The burden of guilt and grief over Gnomeregan's loss weighed heavily on Mekatork. However, the most profound struggle stemmed from the bewilderment surrounding his old friend's betrayal. Gnomes, as a race, had always relied on each other, making it inconceivable for a gnome to harm his own kind in the pursuit of power. Fueled by fury, Mekatork ordered Thermoplug's demise. A group of heroes embarked on the mission and were sent into the depths of Gnomeregan to slay Thermoplug. They eventually returned with a tale of victory. However, upon closer scrutiny, Mekatork deduced that the mechanized overlord defeated in the city depths was likely a cleverly engineered copy of Thermoplug, and that the real Thermoplug was still alive. Realizing that overcoming his nemesis required a more robust strategy, Mekatork diligently worked on plans to reclaim the city. His relentless brainstorming led to the formulation of Operation Gnomeregan, a brilliant, multi-phased assault plan crafted to liberate the gnomish capital and bring the genuine Thermoplug to justice. With the operation poised to commence, resourceful gnomes like Doc Cogspin, Captain Tread Sparknozzle, and Drill Sergeant Steamcrank oversaw preparations and fine-tuned new technology crucial for the offensive. Simultaneously, Mekatork began rallying all able-bodied gnomes to join the attack. After meticulous planning, Gelbin Mekatork finally set his plan into motion and initiated Operation Gnomeregan. Guided by Mekatork, the Gnomeregan exiles and their alliance allies gathered their forces at Steel Grill's depot, the designated staging grounds for the Gnomeregan offensive and the manufacturing site for the gnomes' mechanotanks. Once the preparations were complete, Mekatork led a comprehensive assault to secure control over Gnomeregan's airfield. By doing so, he established a surface command post, and from here they initiated a raid into the lower tunnels of Gnomeregan. After securing the entrance, Mekatork's forces advanced toward Thermoplug at the heart of the city. In retaliation, Thermoplug unleashed swarms of trogs led by Gasharik. Alongside this, armies of Leper-known soldiers under the command of Commander Boltkog. As Mekatork's forces persisted, Thermoplug revealed his trump card, the Irradiator 3000, a device reminiscent of the original radiation bomb that had poisoned Gnomeregan all those years ago, but this time round it was 26 times more powerful. It initiated a 10-minute countdown to explosion until Thermoplug, realizing an oversight by his underlings, intervened, reducing the timer to 10 seconds. This forced Mekatork's forces to immediately teleport back to the safety of Tinkertown in Ironforge. However, Mekatork asserted that with the surface of the city reclaimed, Thermoplug had merely bought himself some more time. In the ongoing effort to reclaim Gnomeregan, Thermoplug devised a trap within Mekatork's former living quarters in Sector 17. He rigged a tripwire to the High Tinker's old spectacles left behind during the evacuation. After conducting a thorough sweep of the area, Mekatork, alone and unarmed for some reason, entered the quarters and picked up the glasses, only realizing it was a trap too late. Thermoplug sealed the room's doors and unleashed 3 trogs with the intention of killing the High Tinker. Throughout the ordeal, Thermoplug taunted Mekatork through the intercom, reveling in the belief that Mekatork's demise would devastate the gnomes. Mekatork, utilizing his surroundings, managed to fend off the trogs while engaging Thermoplug in conversation, mocking his failed genocide plan. Exploiting the flaws in Thermoplug's trap design, Mekatork dispatched the trogs. Before he could escape, Thermoplug returned with more trogs to confront Mekatork personally. Now equipped with a new, agile, human-sized battlesuit, Thermoplug explained that the previous suit was too unwieldy, asserting that the king of the gnomes should be on equal footing with other rulers. They exchanged words, with Thermoplug expressing bitterness over the lack of recognition he believed he deserved while working under Mekatork. In response, Mekatork unveiled how he had allowed Thermoplug to take credit for the siege engine guns secretly reworked by Mekatork himself due to their friendship. For a fleeting moment, Thermoplug appeared reminiscent of the bright young gnome Mekatork had once befriended, but the moment quickly passed. Thermoplug dismissed it as an example of Mekatork's weakness and prepared to kill him. Mekatork activated a backup plan, exploiting the repurposed trap mechanism. He released a tightly wound spring, instantly killing every trog in the room, and severing Thermoplug's suit in half, disconnecting his legs from his body. Although Thermoplug survived, thanks to the suit cauterizing his wounds, Mekatork chose to leave him for dead. He considered it a fitting punishment for Thermoplug's crimes against the gnomes. While Operation Gnomeregan did not achieve its primary goal of reclaiming the city, it did pave the way for the establishment of new Tinkertown at its entrance. Thermoplug, who had survived being cut short, opted to stay concealed within Gnomeregan, directing his minion, Razlo Crushcog, and a contingent of leper gnomes to disrupt Mekatork's forces on the surface. Their aim was to hinder their rebuilding efforts and prevent the completion of the capital's reclamation. Mekatork dispatched a force known as SAFE, commanded by Nevin Twistwrench, to recover surviving gnomes. The Gnomeregan exiles gradually reclaimed sections of the city, including the old dormitory. Mekatork's forces continuously clashed with Thermoplug's irradiated gnome units. Seeking to impede the Trog advance, the High Tinker enlisted Karman Palegrip and his demolitions team, ultimately leading to a joint gnome and dwarven force to overcome and slay one of Thermoplug's staunch supporters, Razlo Crushcog. With this defeat, Thermoplug found himself unable to dispatch more of his followers to the surface, and Mekatork confidently asserted that the Mechaneer's ultimate defeat was on the horizon. In a dramatic conclusion to Thermoplug's story, the G-Team, an elite unit enlisted by the High Tinker to reclaim Gnomeregan, subsequently sought the assistance of adventurers to bring about Thermoplug's demise. In a brutal campaign, together they all successfully vanquished Sicko Thermoplug. The downfall of Thermoplug heralded a new era for the gnomish race. Gnomes could now gradually reclaim sections of the city. Unfortunately though, the scars inflicted by Thermoplug's actions will endure for many years. A substantial part of the city remains uninhabitable due to the lingering radiation in its halls. The prospect of a time where the gnomish race can thrive again in Gnomeregan seems elusive, and achieving it may require many years. Some gnomes have established a base in the hills surrounding the city, dedicating their lives to curing irradiated gnomes in the area and slowly purifying the halls of the city. As we wrap up the Gnomeregan saga, emotions are profound, echoing the highs and lows that shaped this underground city. Once a symbol of gnomish brilliance, Gnomeregan's origins trace back to Azeroth's early days, a testament to progress and unity envisioned by the Titan Forged. Yet, Sicko Thermoplug's betrayal plunged Gnomeregan into chaos, subjecting the gnomes to Trog onslaughts, radiation, and of course, betrayal. High Tinker Gelbe Mekatork emerged as a beacon of hope amid all of this despair, navigating a path of friendship turned rivalry with Sicko, defining a resilient saga. Operation Gnomeregan, a daring assault, symbolized the gnomish spirit. Despite setbacks, Gelbin's determination to reclaim Gnomeregan persisted, marking a turning point after Sicko's fall. Yet, like we said before, the scars linger. As gnomes work to purify their home and cure irradiated kin, Gnomeregan's legacy endures. United in restoring their city, the gnomish race faces an arduous journey. But Gnomeregan's spirit lives on in those who defy the tragedy. In this emotional journey through Gnomeregan's history, we witness resilience and the enduring power of hope. As the gnomes seek redemption, the echoes of Gnomeregan's past resonate through Azeroth, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, the gnomish spirit prevails. Welcome once more to the hallowed halls of our Grand Library. Today our tale takes us into the depths of history, where we shall uncover the secrets of Winterspring. Winterspring is a snowy valley located in the northern corner of Kalimdor. It lies east of Felwood, northeast of Mount Hyjal, and north of Azshara. This serene corner of Kalimdor holds numerous secrets, drawing adventurers from all over the world to come and explore its mysteries. The goblin trading post of Everlock, ancient Night Elf ruins, and the expansive cave of Mazdaril, the home of the Blue Dragonflight on Kalimdor, all make Winterspring a destination of great interest. The picturesque landscape is inhabited by a variety of creatures, including yetis, frost sabers, and the spirits of the Highborn, all of which reflect the rich history of those who once thrived in this region. Our exploration of Winterspring transports us to an era predating Azeroth's Great Sundering, over 10,000 years ago, when the continents formed a single supercontinent known as Kalimdor, a time when the Night Elf civilization dominated the lands. Nestled in the northwestern expanse of Kalimdor stood the grand Night Elven city of Kel'Thuzil, once the residence of the Highborn. These Night Elves were referred to as the Quel'Dorei, translating to children of noble birth in Darnassian. The Highborn, an elite faction within this ancient Night Elf civilization, comprised of the favoured followers of Queen Azshara. Despite this grandeur of the ancient Night Elf Empire, certain segments of the race often faced a significant downfall, the insatiable thirst for power. In their pursuit of total control over these lands, a faction of Highborn journeyed from their city of Kel'Thuzil, situated in what we now recognise as Winterspring, to the neighbouring city of Eldorath, in a region that would later be known as Azshara. Within Eldorath, the Kel'Thuzil Highborn stole a crystal from the temple of Zin Malor, a sacred place dedicated to their goddess Elune. The crystal, also known as the Crystal of Zin Malor, was a potent relic with the ability to harness and control formidable arcane energies. Although much remains unknown about the crystal, it is said that its possessor could wield extraordinary arcane power, granted they were deemed truly worthy. Upon the return of the Kel'Thuzil Highborn to their city with the crystal, the temptation of its arcane control proved irresistible. When tampered with, the crystal shattered, bringing a curse upon the Highborn of Kel'Thuzil and plunging the city's inhabitants into a period of anguish. This heedless manipulation of power would of course foreshadow the events that unfolded thereafter. The Highborn's increasingly reckless embrace of magic, under the guidance of their queen, would have dire consequences. Their investigations into the magical lake, known as the Well of Eternity, caused disturbances across the Great Dark Beyond. The resulting disruptions in the Twisting Nether drew the attention of the nefarious forces of the Burning Legion to Azeroth, and ultimately sparking the War of the Ancients. We won't delve into the complexity of the War of the Ancients in this narrative, we are going to focus solely on the aspects that are relevant to Winterspring. In the final confrontation between Malfurion Stormrage and Queen Azshara's forces, Malfurion harnessed the power of a relic known as the Dragon Soul, also known as the Demon Soul. This act managed to disrupt the meticulously woven spells of the Highborn, severing the connection between the Legion and Azeroth. The result was instability within the Well of Eternity, setting off a cataclysmic chain reaction that forever sundered the world. As the aftershocks reverberated through the land, the seas surged to fill the colossal void left by the Well's implosion. Nearly 80% of Kalimdor was shattered, leaving only fragmented continents encircling the turbulent new sea. Kel'Thuzil, like many other places, fell victim to the devastation of the Sundering and was submerged beneath the waters. The city of Kel'Thuzil was transformed into a lake during the Sundering and subsequently froze over in the following years. While some remnants of the city's pillars protrude above the waterline, a substantial part remained submerged and encased in ice. The lake that now sits on top of it, Lake Kel'Thuzil, is now the largest body of water in Winterspring and harbours the lingering spirits of the Highborn who met their demise during these historic events. The involvement in the War of the Ancients, of course, extends beyond the Night Elves, as the Blue Dragons were among the first to recognise the potential threat posed by the Burning Legion. When the Earth aspect, Neltharion, proposed the creation of a magical artifact known as the Demon Soul, or the Dragon Soul, to combat the demons, the Blue Dragonflight swiftly embraced the idea. Malygos, the aspect of the Blue Dragonflight, and a close friend and supporter of Neltharion, contributed a significant portion of his essence to forge the Dragon Soul. While the intricate details of Neltharion's betrayal and the Dragon Soul's dark saga deserve a dedicated account, in summary, Neltharion turned the artifact against the other Dragonflights. He had been driven mad and corrupted by the old gods, a fact unbeknownst to the other aspects. The devastating power of the Dragon Soul was unleashed upon the Blue Dragonflight, instantly claiming the lives of nearly all its members. As the remaining dragons prepared to retaliate, Neltharion withdrew, leaving the once proud Blue Dragonflight shattered. The other Dragonflights retreated, seeking seclusion to recover from the repercussions of the Dragon Soul, but the damage to the Draconic race proved irreparable. Although the Legion was defeated by the combined efforts of the Kaldorei and their allies, Azeroth still suffered, sundered by the destructive betrayal of Deathwing. Following the loss of his offspring and his mates, Malygos, overwhelmed by guilt for convincing the other aspects to infuse their powers into the Dragon Soul, secluded himself in his lair at Koldara for thousands of years, succumbing to madness. However, he did make one last rational decision. He placed his surviving dragonkin in the caverns of Maztharil, a cave system situated in central Winterspring. There they were tasked with the eternal vigilance over the sacred site of Mount Hyjal, home to the World Tree Nordrassil and the second Well of Eternity. The Blue Dragonflight maintained a presence within these caves in Winterspring for millennia to come. The responsibility of guarding Maztharil fell upon Harlair, a dragon who held the esteemed title of Matron Protectorate of the Blue Dragon Lair. Harlair, characterised by her studious nature, took pleasure in literature and texts. She eagerly delved into any fragment of knowledge or trivia that crossed her path. Renowned for her ability to assume different forms and to seamlessly integrate into other societies, Harlair favoured the guise of a female high elf. As was common among blue dragons, she maintained a peaceful demeanour but staunchly defended her territorial domain. Harlair commanded 4 formidable drakes entrusted with the protection of Maztharil: Spellmore, Manaclaw, Scryer, and Azurus, all bestowed the task of protecting Maztharil. General Colbaton, a distinguished leader of the Blue Flight, was also observed in the proximity of Maztharil, adding an extra layer of vigilance to the Lair's defences. Following the devastating events of the Great Sundering, the frozen expanse of Winterspring entered an era of serene stillness that endured for thousands of years. Only in more recent times, approximately 70 years before the opening of the Dark Portal on Azeroth, or a century before the Cataclysm and the resurgence of Deathwing, did the whispers of the Crystal of Zimbalor's potent powers echo across the world once again. Attracted by these rumours, a group of High Elves, led by Archmage Manias, journeyed from Quel'Thalas to Winterspring in pursuit of the elusive crystal. When they arrived, they discovered the crystal's shattered remnants. Akin to the fate of the Highborn millennia before, they too became spectral echoes wandering among the ruins. Advancing through time from the ancient tales of the Great Sundering 10,000 years ago, we arrive at the events of the Alliance and Horde conflicts following the opening of the Dark Portal. Approximately 4 years after the Second War, the goblin city of Gadgetzan had already taken root in Tanaris on Kalimdor. attracting the attention of the renowned human explorer and sailor Graydon Thorne, confirming that the goblins had an influence over the lands of Kalimdor. The goblins swiftly expanded their reach, establishing key locations. The goblin town of Ratchet emerged on the eastern shore in the Northern Barrens, and the Venture Company wreaked havoc in the Stone Talon Mountains, a saga that is accessible through a secure portal in the tale description below. Relevant to our narrative, their ventures extended to what seemed to be the very edge of Kalimdor. Upon their arrival, the goblins of the Steamweedle cartel promptly erected a trading post in the heart of Winterspring, known today as Everlock. Situated on the east side of Winterspring, it stands as the sole major goblin outpost in northern Kalimdor and serves multiple functions. Primarily, it acts as an operational hub for goblin miners extracting thorium and arcanite, as Winterspring boasts some of the few untapped veins of these materials on the continent. Secondarily, it operates as a pivotal trade centre open to all races and factions. Generally, both factions coexist relatively peacefully within its confines. A decade after the goblins established their settlements on Kalimdor, the Third War erupted across Azeroth, thrusting the Night Elves into the throes of conflict. Their once undisturbed land now faced the ravages of war, with the undead, the Burning Legion, humans and orcs all descending upon Kalimdor. Tyrande Whisperwind, along with her Night Elf sentinels, engaged in a desperate struggle to safeguard their cherished homeland. Under the weight of the Orcish Horde's influence, the Night Elves suffered a severe blow when the demigod of the groves and the Lord of the Forest, Cenarius, fell to demonically corrupted orcs led by Grom Hellscream. With Cenarius' demise, the Night Elves' only resource was to awaken the Druids. After retrieving the potent relic that is Cenarius' horn from Moonglade, Tyrande roused the mighty Druid and her lover, Malfurion Stormrage. Together, they ventured to the Barrow Dens within Winterspring to awaken the Druids of the Talon, a group that specialised in information gathering and intelligence. These Druids had the ability to transform into storm crows, soaring over the battlefield to scout and relay orders to distant troops. Their magical spell-like powers could manipulate the very winds to combat Kalimdor's adversaries. By creating ferocious cyclones, the Druids of the Talon could sow chaos among enemy lines. Having completed their tasks in Winterspring, Tyrande and Malfurion proceeded to the Barrow Deeps and the southern base of Mount Hyjal to awaken the Druids of the Claw from their slumber. Without delving into the intricate details of the Third War, a tale well known to many, alongside the newfound alliance between the humans and the orcs at Stone Talon Peak, Malfurion and Tyrande led the Night Elves in the conflict. Together they all emerged victorious against the Burning Legion, with a historic triumph at the Battle of Mount Hyjal. Following the victory at the Battle of Mount Hyjal, Winterspring once more embraced a period of tranquility. While the world recovered from the repercussions of the Third War, one race exhibited an unyielding spirit, showing no inclination to pause and reflect: the Goblins. The denizens of Everlock continued their relentless pursuits, amassing untold riches in this snowy expanse. The prosperity of Everlock attracted a surge of adventurers into Winterspring in the 25th year following the opening of the Dark Portal. This development was welcomed by the Everlock locals, as they could utilise the new adventurers to aid them in their quest to confront the threat posed by the demons of Dark Whisper Gorge. This refuge became the sanctuary for the surviving remnants of the Burning Legion following the demise of Archimonde in the climatic events of the Third War. To this very day, Everlock serves as a frequent stop and resupply point for pilgrims embarking on a journey through Winterspring to the Hyjal summit. The town of Everlock also plays host to the Thorium Brotherhood, a group of self-assured Dark Irons who assert their supremacy as the finest smiths in existence. Under the leadership of Malifus Darkhammer, the Brotherhood peddles their thorium goods at exorbitant prices. During a visit to Everlock, Bran Bronzebeard contemplated revealing his superior craftsmanship, but ultimately dismissed the notion as a futile endeavour. He urged others to follow suit, attaching a catalogue highlighting the ludicrous prices and subpar wares offered by Malifus. The goblins in Everlock recently uncovered a new mine south of their city, located not far from the Dragon Caves of Mazdarel. Rich in arcanite, this mine has proven elusive thus far. While distinct from the Blue Dragon's cave complex, the goblins, ever resourceful, seek adventurers willing to negotiate with the territorial Blue Dragonflight for access to the mine in exchange for a generous reward. Discussing rewards, the goblins of Everlock are renowned for dispatching adventurers into the wilds of Winterspring, enticing them with the prospect of gold, armour and knowledge upon accomplishing the requested tasks. These goblins are notorious for employing adventurers to undertake various assignments such as eliminating yetis, assisting in engineering endeavours, gathering the horns of the Chillwind Chimera, and even delving into Felwood for scientific exploration. With the increased influx of adventurers to the region 25 years after the events of the Dark Portal, reports of other settlements began to circulate worldwide. Among the first mentioned is Starfall Village, where adventurers can learn about the tales surrounding the Crystal of Zimbalor and the Highborn of the ancient city of Kelthoril. Another village, Winterfall Village, located on the eastern edge of Winterspring, gained attention for being inhabited by corrupted furbolgs that instilled terror into the area. It's worth noting that the Winterfall furbolgs aren't the only furbolgs that occupy Winterspring. Pausing our exploration of the tales within Winterspring, let us redirect our focus back to the era of the War of the Ancients. As the corruption of the Burning Legion infiltrated the sacred forests of Kalimdor, the initially gentle creatures of the wild were the first to bear the brunt of its monstrous power. Once relatively docile animals transformed into abominable frenzied killers, their flesh torn and their spirits desecrated, swiftly succumbing to the demonic influence of the Burning Legion. Subsequently, the furbolgs, the ursine denizens of the forest, fell victim to the same fate, their entire species driven mad by the surrounding corruption. Yet, amidst the chaos and the madness, one furbolg tribe managed to escape the darkness that had befallen Kalimdor, taking refuge in Timbermoor Hold, a tunnel system that runs beneath the mountains connecting Felwood, Moonglade and of course Winterspring. In these tunnels the Timbermoor tribe weathered the storm, witnessing helplessly as the once beloved forest transformed into a twisted, festering perversion of its former self. When the spirits of the forests fell silent, the Timbermoor tribe understood that their home was lost, and perhaps it was lost forever, and thus the deceased forest earned the name Felwood. With the defeat of the Burning Legion, the Timbermoor furbolgs cautiously ventured outside the safety of their hold. Wary of all strangers, they feared being mistaken for their corrupted brethren and attacked. Though lacking in precious jewels or worldly riches, the Timbermoor held strong to their shamanistic traditions. Proficient in crafting armours from animal hides, they gladly shared their healing talismans with friends of their tribe. The Timbermoor's primary concerns centred on ending their corrupted brethren's suffering and seeking a cure to heal the wounds inflicted by Felwood's corruption. As previously noted, these furbolgs are cautious of travellers, so tread with kindness or your journey to Winterspring may be your last. In the aftermath of the Cataclysm and the resurgence of Deathwing, Winterspring appeared at a superficial level to have weathered the dragon's devastation. However, there were some alterations in the region that demand attention. Post-Cataclysm, the Twilight's Hammer forcibly seized the Dark Whisper Gorge from the Burning Legion demons, maintaining control over the territory, except for the Gates of Sothan, which fell to the Pit Lord Garnoth and his forces. Simultaneously, Mazthril, once the revered abode of the Blue Dragonflight, underwent transformations too. After the shattering, Umbrance the Spirit Speaker, a human mage driven by an unquenchable thirst for power, asserted control over Mazthril. It was revealed that Umbrance had been amassing magical artifacts, including dragon essences and the notorious Crystal of Zimbalor, and he was doing so to augment his own strength. As Mazthril succumbed to Umbrance the Spirit Seeker's influence, the blue dragon Harle relocated to near the entrance of the caves, establishing a small camp known as Beryl Egress. Subsequently, she sought the assistance of adventurers in her mission to eliminate Umbrance and to reclaim their ancient home. In a tidbit of lore, exactly 1 year before the Cataclysm, following the culmination of the Nexus War and the demise of the Blue Dragon aspect Malygos, Harle emerged as the sole surviving consort of Malygos. She was the first to achieve the unprecedented feat of outliving a dragon aspect, marking a significant shift in the balance of draconic existence. An aspect of the Winterspring tale that we haven't explored yet is the story of the Winterspring Frost Sabers. Within Winterspring's mysterious embrace lies a secretive faction exclusive to the Alliance, known as the Winter Saber Trainers. The keeper of the Winter Saber lore in these frosty lands is Riven Frostwind, a figure. Welcome once more to the hallowed halls of our grand library. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of history, where we shall uncover the secrets of the Elwyn Forest. The Elwyn Forest, a vast woodland that sits below the foothills of the Burning Steppes. It neighbours the calm Red Ridge Mountains in the east, lies north of Westfall, and is separated from Duskwood by the Nazvariti River. It is the very heart of the human kingdom of Stormwind, featuring a blend of winding rivers, lakes, dense forests with tall trees, and lush glades. The region benefits from frequent rains, nurturing its fertile farmlands. While humans inhabit the Elwyn Forest, it's also home to murlocs in some of the lakes, and various creatures like kobolds, gnolls, bears, wolves, spiders, and boars, all contributing to its rich wildlife. The story of the Elwyn Forest remains shrouded in mystery before the establishment of Stormwind ages ago by the Arathi bloodline of Stromgarde. Therefore, a brief yet concise overview of Stormwind's establishment serves as an ideal starting point for this narrative. For ages, the early human tribes thrived in the Eastern Kingdoms, engaging in continuous conflicts over territory and dominance. Situated on the northeastern borders between the human lands and the Amani Empire, the Arathi tribe engaged in prolonged battles with these forest trolls. The endurance of Arathor lasted for more than 1,000 years, and it gradually fragmented into the Seven Kingdoms. Around 1,200 years before the events of the Dark Portal, the noble families of Strom aimed to depart the Arathi Highlands to settle in the more fertile northern regions of Lordaeron. Despite Thoradin's heirs arguing against abandoning Strom, the nobles still departed. The remaining Arathi descendants also left Arathor, journeying southward to establish the Kingdom of Stormwind. After traversing the rugged mountains of Khazmodan, their arduous journey culminated as they settled in the northern reaches of the continent, confusingly christened Azeroth. In a verdant valley, they established the realm of Stormwind, swiftly emerging as a self-sustaining power. Initially, the Kingdom of Stormwind stood as the smallest and most secluded human nation, but it gradually thrived through the cultivation of numerous farmsteads in the fertile surroundings. As Stormwind's populace expanded, small towns sprouted around Elwyn Forest, the Red Ridge Mountains, Brightwood and Westfall, with the latter being renowned as the kingdom's breadbasket. Across several centuries, devout clerics from the Church of the Holy Light ventured south from Lordaeron, spreading their faith upon reaching Stormwind and establishing the Holy Order of the Northshire Clerics. The kingdom found steadfast support from the Knights of the Brotherhood of the Horse. A more fitting name they went by were the Knights of Azeroth. These knights swore allegiance to the Kingdom of Stormwind and protected it with unmatched valour. Before delving deeper into Stormwind's history, we will wrap up the tales on this city. While a comprehensive narrative about Stormwind City awaits in a separate tale, for now let's return to the heart of this story in the Forest of Elwyn. We will occasionally revisit Stormwind when its relevance emerges within this narrative. As previously mentioned, owing to their prosperity in the region, the humans of Stormwind began exploring the forests of Elwyn and establishing smaller settlements on the outskirts of the main city. Apart from Stormwind City, one of the earliest settlements in the Elwyn Forest region is nestled within the Northshire Valley. Devout clerics from the Church of the Holy Light arrived in Stormwind and were allocated the Northshire Valley to construct their abbey and establish their residence. These clerics became integral to the kingdom, offering wisdom and solace during challenging periods. Utilizing the powers of the light, they provided comfort to the citizens of Stormwind and aided their kingdom's army in numerous battles. One of the other earliest settlements outside the city walls was one that would go on to become one of the most well-known and talked about towns in all of the world, Goldshire. Goldshire's roads connect it to Stormwind City in the northwest, Northshire Abbey in the northeast, Westfall in the west, and Lakeshire in the east. Its placement establishes it as a crucial trade centre. Travellers, merchants, adventurers, Stormwind guards, and abbey priests frequently pass through, often relishing the hospitality of the esteemed alehouse Lion's Pride Inn during their travels to and from Stormwind. The humans continued expanding and thriving within the Elwyn Forest for numerous years following the establishment of Stormwind City, up until approximately 75 years before the events of the Dark Portal. It was at this time when the residents of the Elwyn Forest traded in their pitchforks and their hoes for swords and axes, and dedicated all their resources to safeguarding their tranquil land against a formidable and ruthless adversary, the Gnolls. During the expansion of the kingdom's borders, the humans encountered packs of Gnolls in the region. These creatures, known for their vicious raids on human towns and convoys, posed a constant threat. However, the deployment of heavily armed groups comprising of soldiers and knights helped maintain some control over the situation, ensuring that Stormwind's territories and frontier regions were guarded. Despite efforts to contain the Gnoll threat, the reign of King Baratheon Ryn witnessed a drastic escalation in attacks. The Gnoll assaults reached such severity that even the fortified capital of Stormwind faced direct attacks. This dire situation was orchestrated by Pack Lord Garfang, a cunning and intelligent leader among the gnolls. Garfang united various gnoll packs, demonstrating remarkable strategic skills and amassing an organised army. Facing the imminent gnoll threat and abandoned by neighbouring human kingdoms, King Baratheon devised a bold plan. He led a small contingent of elite knights in a daring strike against Garfang's weakened defences in the Red Ridge Mountains. This daring move resulted in the successful elimination of the Pack Lord. The demise of Garfang sent shockwaves through the gnoll population, triggering internal strife and power struggles. The infighting severely crippled the gnolls' ability to mount large-scale assaults on the kingdom. With the gnoll forces significantly weakened, King Baratheon rallied Stormwind's armies and launched an offensive against the remaining gnoll groups in Red Ridge. His strategic moves and decisive actions culminated in the defeat and near annihilation of the gnolls in the region. This monumental victory reinforced Stormwind's belief in its self-reliance and capability to handle threats independently. However, this confidence would soon be tested, as the tragic consequences of their over-optimism would become apparent in the future. Following their triumph over the gnolls, the denizens of Stormwind and the Elwyn Forest returned to their daily routines, turning the soil, nurturing their families, and sustaining themselves from the bountiful forests. However, the cycle of history on Azeroth often repeats itself, and conflict once again befell the lands of the Elwyn Forest. Roughly 5 decades later, with the tales of the Gnoll Wars being passed down to the succeeding generation, it was overshadowed by a new threat to the Kingdom of Stormwind: the Gurubashi Trolls. Around 18 years prior to the First War, the Gurubashi War erupted, involving a massive troll army laying siege to Stormwind City. The conflict had evolved from a series of smaller disputes between the factions, primarily over territories bordering Stranglethorn Vale, where settlers from Stormwind encroached upon. Despite attempts by King Baratheon Ryn to contain the situation, tensions heightened, eventually culminating in Prince Lane Ryn leading an expedition to strike at the heart of the Gurubashi leadership in central Stranglethorn. This action united the trolls against Stormwind, nearly bringing it to ruin in retaliation for the assassination of their former warlord. However, the kingdom eventually emerged triumphant, largely owing to the intervention of the Guardian Medivh. Following the dispersal of the troll army at Stormwind City's gates, the southern jungle trolls never really posed a significant threat to the kingdom again. The war's end brought almost 2 decades of relative peace to Stormwind, a period that would eventually be interrupted by the outbreak of the First War against the Orcish Horde. The people of Azeroth were unaware of the grand scheme being orchestrated by the powerful human mage, Medivh. Seeking to destroy the Kingdom of Stormwind and cause widespread chaos across the lands, Medivh collaborated with an otherworldly being named Gul'dan. Together, they utilized their arcane prowess to create a rift, the infamous Dark Portal, linking their 2 worlds. Through this portal emerged the savage Orcish Horde, catching the inhabitants of Azeroth by surprise and instilling terror into their hearts. The detailed account of the First War spans across numerous battles and strategic moves. However, our focus will be on its impact specifically within the confines of the Elwyn Forest. A massive horde force besieged Stormwind, encircling the capital city. Fierce battles erupted at the city's defences, engulfing the surroundings in chaos. Yet, a surprise counterattack led by Anduin Lothar and the valiant Knights of Stormwind caught the Orcs off guard, compelling them to retreat temporarily. Nevertheless, the conflict escalated, leading to the destruction of Goldshire and Moonbrook, key settlements within the Kingdom of Stormwind. These 2 losses significantly weakened the kingdom. Orgrim Doomhammer, a mighty Orcish leader, directed his forces to besiege Stormwind Keep. The city's defences were tested to their limits, and eventually fell after the treacherous assassination of the now king, Lane Ryn, orchestrated by Garona. With the Kingdom of Stormwind's collapse imminent, Anduin Lothar, realising the dire situation, gathered the remaining forces and civilians for a desperate retreat. They sought refuge in the northern kingdom of Lordaeron, beseeching King Menethil II for aid against the relentless Orcish onslaught. Following Stormwind's fall, the Orcish Horde established dominance over portions of the Elwyn Forest, marking a bleak chapter in the kingdom's history. Continuing to the next chapter, we approach the events of the Second War. Our focus in this chapter won't delve into the intricate details of the conflict, as the Elwyn Forest's involvement held minimal significance within this narrative. we'll highlight only the relevant aspects. Following the fall of Stormwind, the newly appointed Horde war chief, Orgrim Doomhammer, embarked on a mission to conquer the remaining territories of Azeroth. Recognizing the imminent threat, a gathering of leaders from various human nations took place in Lordaeron, culminating in the establishment of the Alliance of Lordaeron. During the Second War, the Alliance armies forced the Horde back to the Thandalspan bridges, liberating Khazmodan in their pursuit. Engaging Doomhammer's forces in the Burning Steppes, the Alliance achieved a decisive victory, albeit at the cost of losing Anduin Lothar in battle. The war concluded after the climatic battle at the Dark Portal, leading to its destruction. Despite Lothar's absence, the Alliance reclaimed Stormwind's ruins, subsequently regaining control over Elwyn. The reconstruction of the city amassed substantial costs, straining Stormwind's economy and inciting dissatisfaction among its populace. This culminated in the formation of the Defias Brotherhood, composed mostly of discontented middle and lower class individuals, including the unpaid Stonemasons Guild, who had rebuilt Stormwind. Archbishop Alonsus Fail played a pivotal role in the reconstruction of Northshire Abbey. Additionally, he contributed to the establishment of a fresh clerical order, composed of clerics, priests and paladins, known as the Brotherhood of Northshire, serving as a recruitment centre for the Stormwind army. Nevertheless, against all odds, the Elwyn Forest managed to regain much of its former splendour. Over the next nearly 2 decades, time quietly advanced within the Elwyn Forests. It was during these decades the Scourge wreaked havoc in the northern territories of Lordaeron, and conflicts unfolded on the continent of Kalimdor. But this forest, situated in the southern region, was relatively isolated and maintained an environment of growth and prosperity amidst the ongoing wars elsewhere. By the year 25, a mere 4 years following the Burning Legion's defeat in Kalimdor, the rebuilt capital city of Stormwind and its surrounding lands were flourishing once more. The Elwyn Forest witnessed a surge of fresh adventurers, exploring the terrain, seeking new residences, forging new connections, and earnestly pledging their service to the Kingdom of Stormwind in various capacities. The kingdom and the denizens of the Elwyn Forest warmly embraced this wave of new adventurers, frequently offering food, gold, enhanced armour, knowledge, and a spot by the fire at the Lion's Pride Inn, all in exchange for the adventurers' aid. It can be said that the inhabitants of the Elwyn Forest truly capitalised on these newcomers. They dispatched them into the forest to handle minor threats that marginally disrupted the otherwise tranquil life within the woodland. Adventurers initially made their way to Northshire Abbey, aiding Marshal McBride and the Brotherhood in reducing the wolf population, dealing with the threat from the Defias Brotherhood, and addressing the kobold issue in the mines. Many esteemed paladins, mages, priests, rogues, warlocks and warriors walked the halls of the Northshire Abbey, and righteously contributed to the Brotherhood's quest for peace. Upon restoring that peace in the Northshire Valley, many adventurers proceeded to Goldshire, a nearby town adjacent to Stormwind's gates. There they encountered locals like William Pessel, Marshal Duggan, and the infamous figure Remy Two Times. These inhabitants offered further training, wealth, and a safe stay at the Lion's Pride Inn in exchange for dealing with various threats throughout the forest. They succeeded in diminishing the kobold, bear, wolf, boar, and even the dreaded murloc populations. A notable triumph from within the Elwyn Forests at this time was subduing the resurgent Gnoll pack dominating the southwestern Elwyn Forest. The Gnolls, acting as agents for the Defias Brotherhood, the adventurers confronted Hogger, a Gnoll troubling the region known as Hogger Hill. In a battle that unfortunately led to the death of many adventurers, they managed to defeat the Gnoll. This restored a degree of peace to the forest. Over time, these pledged adventurers expanded their reach across the Kingdom of Stormwind, exploring areas like the Red Ridge Mountains, Westfall, and the darkness of the region now known as Duskwood, all after gaining more knowledge within their chosen specializations. Though minor threats persisted in the Elwyn Forest, the tales of riches and adventure within the Kingdom of Stormwind continued to spread across Azeroth, and new adventurers continuously arrived, offering their aid and ensuring that the region's dangers remained at bay. Years later, following the resolution of the Blackrock Mountain threat, the defeat of Onyxia, and Kel'Thuzad's downfall in Naxxramas, those adventurers returned to Stormwind City in Elwyn Forest to rest. However, respite was short-lived, as the impending doom loomed over the world during the Burning Crusade in year 26 and the Wrath of the Lich King in year 27. Elwyn Forest had its own ordeal during the Scourge invasion of Stormwind in the war against the Lich King. Despite the valiant efforts of Stormwind's residents and armies in repelling the Scourge, the conflict bore its own share of tragedy and loss. During the retaliatory campaign in Northrend against the Lich King and his forces, the Goldshire unit of the Stormwind army found an opportunity for retribution as part of the Valiant's expedition in the Howling Fjord. When the Scourge threat withdrew from the land, tranquility returned to the trees, allowing life to flourish across the region. However, the tranquility was shattered by the Cataclysm and the return of Deathwing. These events cracked the once natural defences around the kingdom, leaving openings for opportunistic enemies. The Blackrock clan and goblin assassins infiltrated Northshire. This prompted young human adventurers to repel them in a successful operation. At this time, to safeguard the forest, Stormwind infantry soldiers and patrolling Stormwind Royal Guards were deployed to defend Elwyn. The return of Deathwing marked the beginning of further conflicts across Azeroth. Yet the residents of the Elwyn Forest were spared from the atrocities and battles that followed, occurring in distant lands like the Broken Isles, Pandaria, and more recently, the Dragon Isles. Due to the considerable distance between Elwyn Forest and these ongoing wars, it wasn't until year 35 that the forest faced a formidable enemy for a second time, the Scourge. This encounter happened during the war against the Jailer, which triggered an event known as Death Rising. The cataclysmic act of Sylvanas Windrunner shattering the Helm of Domination resulted in the Scourge running amok, wreaking havoc once more across the lands. To combat the undead threat, troops from the Stormwind Army and the Argent Crusade were mobilised to safeguard the region and its inhabitants. The Scourge were once again vanquished from the lands of the Elwyn Forest. Subsequently, peace gradually returned to the area, a phase in which we currently find ourselves in the world of Azeroth. Before concluding the tales of the Elwyn Forest, two significant events need mentioning. Throughout the year, the Darkmoon Fair set up at the outskirts of the forest town Goldshire, presenting the world's marvels. The origins of the Darkmoon Fair remain relatively unknown, but it's an unmissable source of fun if they're in town. Moreover, Goldshire encounters an attack from the Headless Horseman during the Hallow's End period in October. Further details about the Horseman and his motivations can be explored in our dedicated tale, accessible through a secure portal provided below. As we bring our journey through the history of Elwyn Forest to a close, we behold a landscape that has weathered the passage of time and the tumult of war. From the dark shadows cast by the Null Wars in the year 75 before the Dark Portal, to the upheaval of the First and Second Wars, this land has witnessed countless struggles. Amidst adversity, Elwyn Forest has seen heroes rise and fall, bravery tested against insurmountable odds, and sacrifices made for the greater good. It has endured the onslaught of invading forces, stood strong amidst the chaos of battle, and over time emerged scarred, but ultimately undefeated. Through each era, the forest's ancient trees have stood witness to the valiant efforts of champions and the sorrow of those who have mourned the fallen. In the journey through Elwyn Forest's history, let us honour the spirit of its inhabitants who, amidst the ravages of time and the trials of war, have continued to rebuild, endure and nurture hope. As we stand at this moment in this timeline, let us remember the sacrifices made, the battles fought, and the enduring resilience that echo through the Elwyn Forest. Welcome once more to the hallowed halls of our Grand Library. Today our tale takes us into the depths of history, where we shall uncover the secrets of the Stone Talon Mountains. The Stone Talon Mountains are a range of mountainous peaks situated west of the Northern Barrens, south of Ashenvale, and north of Desolate. Historically, these peaks are the ancestral domain of the Harpies, yet their numbers have decreased amidst the region's unrest. Stone Talon Peak, the largest mountain in the range, holds significant spiritual importance for both the Night Elves and the Tauren. Once, the Night Elves maintained a barrow and a glade at its summit, yet it faced malevolent assaults from an ominous presence. Moving southward, the mountainous region is less densely forested, although some scattered evergreen trees do dot specific areas, such as the Great Red Vale. Within these mountains, creatures like kobolds, spiders and eagles all roam the lands, while the charred vale, stretching toward the sea, harbours perilous black dragons and powerful elementals. The oldest recorded tales of this region are shrouded in mystery. Legends speak of the moon goddess Elune blessing a fountain of health in the land that is now recognised today as the Stone Talon Mountains. A fountain of health was a haven where explorers traversing the ancient lands of Azeroth could naturally restore their health just by being in its vicinity. Regrettably, there are no remnants of these fountains existing in the known lands of Azeroth after the events of the Third War. Due to the region's close proximity to the once ancient Night Elf city of Lothal Azal, this territory would have been inhabited by the Night Elves. Once gentle hills offering serene views of the western ocean waves, the Stone Talon Mountains underwent a dramatic change during the Sundering. The Sundering upheaved sandstone cliffs and towering peaks, creating deep chasms and gorges where water from the eastern coast flowed. Over time, erosion by the Black Wolf River sculpted the mountains into an extensive maze of canyons and cliff formations. Despite the substantial changes the mountains underwent during the Great Sundering, the intricate nature of Azeroth beneath them remained preserved. Throughout the world, there exist pathways of mystical energy known as ley lines. These channels of magical essence serve as the lifeblood of Azeroth's lands, akin to the veins within a living being. They are acknowledged by every culture inhabiting Azeroth, often revered as the sacred sites of the light, moon wells, and natural spots brimming with elemental forces revered by the shamans. Yet, most cultures concentrate on specific locations where these lines intersect, seeking to harness the greatest concentration of power. Two ley lines are known to exist underneath the Stone Talon Mountains, the Great Maze and Mount Farview. The Great Maze, recognised as the stone pattern, this runic design formed from the ley line is utilised to enhance resilience, and Mount Farview, recognised as the pattern of awareness. If positioned at or near its summit, individuals have an extended visual range, amplified echoes from nearby peaks, and even the faintest of scents carried by the winds reach every nostril. Despite the sundering that led to the ancient Night Elf city of Lothal Azal being lost to the depths of the Veiled Sea in the north, reports continued to confirm the presence of Night Elves within these lands for centuries to follow. The mountainous proximity to the once hallowed Mashan-Shi lands drew in the Tauren. Around 1,100 years prior to the Dark Portal's opening on Azeroth, the Tauren roamed Kalimdor's forests and plains, living harmoniously with nature. Among these regions, the lush grasslands of Mashan-Shi held particular sanctity. However, this sacred expanse met a tragic fate as the colossal earth elemental, Princess Theradrus, stirred from her slumber. Desperate for rejuvenation, Theradrus drained Mashan-Shi's vital energies, leaving it barren. The Tauren mournfully named this once sacred land Desolus. Due to the lingering influence of the once great Kaldorei Empire and the Tauren's domain over their central Kalimdor lands, accounts propose an era where the Night Elves and the Tauren peacefully cohabited within the Stone Talon Mountains. The Stone Talon Mountains then vanished into the shadows for the following millennium, offering a sanctuary for the Night Elves, Tauren, and its other inhabitants. Skipping through time from the distant ages before the Dark Portal, right up to the period after the events of the Dark Portal, 10 years exactly, one race did not share the same deep connection with the lands of Kalimdor that the existing Night Elves and the Taurens had, the Goblins. These small, green, crafty folk arrived on Kalimdor after the Second War on Azeroth. About 4 years post the Second War, the Goblin city of Gadgetzan had already been established in Tanaris. This was verified by the renowned Alliance explorer and captain of the Wavestrider, Graydon Thorn, who visited the city. The goblins swiftly spread across Kalimdor in their relentless pursuit of wealth, with some goblins eventually finding themselves in the Stone Talon Mountains. They later established a goblin cartel in the region, but we'll dive into that a little bit later. Travelling another decade through time, we reach the year 20 after the Dark Portal, a period marked once more by the tremendous strife in the realms of Azeroth. During the events of the Third War, the serenity within these mountains would diminish. The leader of the Kirin Tor in Dalaran, Antonidas, embarked on a quest to investigate a mysterious plague spreading across northern Lordaeron. During this mission, he encountered the Prophet, a mysterious being urging the Grand Mage to lead his people westward to Kalimdor. Antonidas dismissed the Prophet as a lunatic, But Jaina, who observed from concealment, sensed immense power within the prophet's words and suggested they heed his warning. Months later, when Arthas and the Scourge assaulted Dalaran, both Jaina and Antonidas realised the truth in the prophet's forewarnings. Antonidas advised Jaina to gather as many survivors from Lordaeron as possible and sail towards Kalimdor. After the destruction of Lordaeron and the fall of Dalaran, Jaina Proudmoore embarked on the voyage to the mystical realm of Kalimdor. The group of alliance she took with her would soon be known as the Human Expedition. It comprised of various military and civilian groups from the Alliance, all seeking refuge from the plague of undeath and the scourge that ravaged Lordaeron, Quel'Thalas, and Dalaran. Shifting our focus to the Horde's narrative, in the time leading to the fall of Lordaeron, Thrall and Grom Hellscream worked tirelessly to rally the scattered Horde forces. One night, Thrall received a vivid vision that foretold of imminent conflicts and catastrophic events. This vision, not a mere dream, but a message, came from the mysterious prophet. The prophet revealed cryptic truths about Thrall's nature, urging him to leave Lordaeron and seek salvation in the mysterious lands of Kalimdor. Following the prophet's guidance, Thrall gathered the Horde, constructing a base and readying for a voyage across the Grey Sea. Amid these preparations, Grom fell captive to humans, prompting Thrall's swift intervention to rescue him. Inspired by Grom's idea of seizing human ships for their exodus, the Horde embarked on a daring escape, setting sail toward the unknown realm of Kalimdor. However, their journey encountered a violent storm near the Maelstrom. In a tale that will be told on another occasion, the storm led to Thrall's forces seeking refuge on an uncharted island, only to be captured by Murlocs. Forming an alliance with the trolls they found there, they broke free from the Darkspear Islands and resumed their journey to Kalimdor. Upon reaching Kalimdor's shores, the scattered Horde emerged, many barely surviving the sea journey. Thrall scoured the coast, gathering orcs and trolls, but found no trace of Grom Hellscream. Engaging in battle to protect the Tarn from Centaur assailants, Thrall encountered Cairn Bloodhoof, chieftain of the Bloodhoof tribe. Impressed by their honour, Cairn offered aid in discovering the Horde's destiny. Cairn revealed to Thrall the tales of the mystical oracle of Stone Talon Peak, believed to hold the key to their destiny in these unfamiliar lands. When Thrall reached the base of the Stone Talon Peak, he discovered Grom Hellscream and the Warsong clan engaged in combat against human forces. The pass leading up to the mountain was also restricted by Proudmoore's troops, who, unknown to the Horde, had also arrived at the Stone Talon Peak. This prompted Thrall's decision to enlist goblins for assistance, and they utilised zeppelins to bypass these defences. While attempting to stealthily approach the goblins, Hellscream impulsively attacked the humans, leading to a skirmish between them and Thrall's forces. To protect his allies, Thrall engaged in battle against the enemy bases. After acquiring the zeppelins, Thrall confronted Grom, who believed that a true warrior would directly face the humans instead of sneaking past them. Concerned at Grom's aggressive tendencies, Thrall ordered him and his clan to gather wood in Ashenvale for their settlement while he ascended the mountain to meet the Oracle. Despite initial reluctance, Grom complied with Thrall's request. Meanwhile, Thrall encountered Cairn once more. However, reaching the summit required dismantling human defences, for which Cairn proposed seeking assistance from the Stone Talon Mountains wyverns. These creatures were captive to the malevolent Harpies, but after a fierce battle, they were liberated and pledged their support to Thrall and the Horde. With their aid, Thrall managed to vanquish the human encampment and proceeded into the caverns of Stone Talon Peak. As Thrall and Cairn explored the caverns, they eventually discovered the Oracle's chamber. However, upon arrival, they discovered that Jaina Proudmoore had already penetrated the cavern. Their encounter with Jaina almost escalated into a confrontation before the Oracle intervened, revealing himself as the prophet previously encountered in Lordaeron by both Thrall and Jaina. Following quick introductions, the prophet conveyed that the Burning Legion invasion had already commenced, resulting in the fall of Lordaeron. The prophet warned that the orcs and the humans needed to unite against a common threat, or face annihilation by the hands of the Legion. He also informed them that Grom had already been corrupted by an agent of the Burning Legion during an operation in the forests of Ashenvale. Despite their reservations, they agreed to combine forces, Thrall especially, driven by the urgency to save Grom. Assisted by the Alliance, the Horde departed from the Stone Talon Mountains, journeying to the Barrens to track down the corrupted Grom Hellscream. To discover more about Thrall's confrontation with Grom, you can tune into our Tales of Ashenvale. A safe portal to the narrative of the forests of Ashenvale can be found in the description below. Not directly linked to the Stone Talon Mountain tales, This story is one that demands closure. Thrall received a vision urging him to bring Jaina to a grove at the foot of Mount Hyjal. There, the prophet revealed himself as Medivh, the last guardian of Tirisfal. He convinced them to unite against the Burning Legion, warning of imminent defeat otherwise. In a tremendous battle, Archimonde was finally vanquished, sealing the defeat of the Burning Legion. The victory at Mount Hyjal signified the conclusion of the Third War. The aftermath of the war left lasting wounds among all races, prompting them to unite for a fresh start, marked by the tentative truce between the Alliance and the Horde. The remaining Alliance troops, led by Jaina Proudmoore, established themselves in southern Kalimdor. Along the eastern shores of Dustwallow Marsh, they constructed the sturdy port city known as Theramore. Thrall led his people and sought a place in the rugged, splendid lands of the Barons. Here he established the lands of Durotar and built the great capital city of the Horde known as Orgrimmar. In the years that followed, Azeroth witnessed the ascent of one of the world's most notorious villains, the Lich King. However, the Stone Talon Mountains gradually faded into obscurity as the attention of Azeroth turned elsewhere. Throughout this era, only a handful of courageous adventurers persisted in exploring the legacy of the Stone Talon Mountains. Several years after establishing themselves in Kalimdor, the goblins expanded their control over the Stone Talon Mountains. Some goblins came together to create the Venture Company, a notorious goblin-run cartel known for exploiting Azeroth's natural resources. Affiliated with the Trade Coalition, this company extends its operations to various corners of Azeroth to this day. On Kalimdor, they are active in regions like Mulgore, the Barrens, and notably in our case, the Stone Talon Mountains. The goblins discovered that the area was rich in lumber and ore. Known for their engineering prowess, the goblins in Stone Talon developed technologies enabling them to clear large sections of the forest within a brief time span. Their rapid deforestation caused concern and resentment among the Night Elves and the Tauren, who viewed it as a barbaric act. As the goblins gained influence, the Night Elves, who of course aligned with the Alliance, and the Horde-affiliated Tauren, sought help from adventurers to address the goblin issue in the mountains. Concurrently, the aggressive Grimtoten tribe, hostile to both factions, persisted in asserting their control over the Stone Talon Mountains. With goblins wreaking havoc in the forest and the Grimtoten tribe striving for dominance, the region became a volatile hub of factional conflict. This is the part of the story where adventurers play a crucial role. As rumours of the goblins' destruction of the Stone Talon Mountain spread across Azeroth in the year 25, adventurers began arriving in the lands to assist their respective factions. Horde adventurers rallied to support the Sunrock Retreat against the Venture Company, mustering up predominantly Orcish and Tauren forces to repair the Venture Company's damage in the region. The once lush and green Windshear Crag lay desolate. Tree stumps, polluted waters, and creaking machinery stood testament to the goblins' logging expedition. It was led by Gorenzo Wrenchwhistle, a gnome renowned for his mechanical prowess. His invention, the Super Reaper 6000, was able to efficiently dismantle even the mightiest of trees. However, their operation faced internal strife when Ziz Physics, a disgruntled goblin once part of the Venture Company, sought revenge by collaborating with adventurers to eliminate Gorenzo and disrupt the goblins' endeavours. After examining the stories and the accounts that surround the events at the Windshear Crag during this time frame, it remains uncertain whether it was the Alliance or the Horde who ultimately succeeded in defeating Gorenzo Wrenchwhistle. The only certainty is that Ziz Physics proudly displays Gorenzo's mechanical arm as proof of the kill. The devastation in the Stone Talon Mountains didn't end there. Another section, the Charred Vale in the southwest, was transformed into a landscape of flames and lava by the Venture Company. The once thriving area, home to the Blood Fury Harpies and protected by Treants, fell victim to the goblins' destructive advances. When the Treants retaliated, the goblins' action enraged the Harpies and unleashed numerous elementals upon the region. Adventurers from both the Alliance and the Horde, despite feuding with the goblins, were also dispatched into the Charred Vale to reduce the numbers of the enraged inhabitants, aiming to restore the valley to its former state. Despite clashing with the Harpies and contending with the Alliance in the Charred Vale, the Horde adventurers triumphed in clearing the Vale of the Harpy menace. They united in a fierce battle that led to the demise of the Harpies' queen, Blood Fury Ripper. After the queen's fall, the Harpies retreated with their remaining forces, paving the way for tranquility to return to the land and a brief period of revitalization. Amidst the conflict against the Venture Company's goblins and the Harpies in the Charred Vale, Other skirmishes were simultaneously occurring within the mountains. In the southern reaches of the mountain range, a small troll settlement urgently sought aid from the Horde, and tasked adventurers to confront the Keepers and the Dryads within Stone Talon Peak. Other urgent pleas for aid reverberated across the lands, summoning Horde forces to join the fight against the formidable Grim Totem tribe. In the 25th year, the Stone Talon Mountains faced a resurgence of conflict reminiscent of the Third War. The Druids dwelling in the Stone Talon Peak defended their settlement against the Horde. Meanwhile, the Horde itself confronted the Grim Totem tribe within their territory. Both factions engaged in fierce battles against the goblins of the Venture Company, and of course the agitated harpies of the Charred Vale. After the dust had settled, a fragile semblance of peace was restored. Although occasional skirmishes between the Alliance and the Horde persisted, these conflicts would gradually subside in the following year, as both factions ventured through the Dark Portal and into the struggles of Outland. 2 years later, following the banishment of Kil'jaeden to the Nether and the defeat of the Lich King Arthas, the Stone Talon Mountains would once more ascend to notable prominence among the lands of Azeroth. After Deathwing's catastrophic impact on Azeroth, the Stone Talon Mountains underwent notable changes. The Charred Vale, mostly rejuvenated through the efforts of the Druids, displayed a significant spire of lava protruding from its southern edge. A dormant volcano nearby erupted, releasing lava that devastated half of the area, creating an opening to the Veiled Sea. As most harpies inhabited the western part of the Vale, they were likely eliminated, except for those who fled in time. Sister Riven is the sole known survivor. Following the destruction caused by the Cataclysm, the area became home to black dragon whelps, fisher-born fire elementals, and black drakes, led by Seldaria. Stone Talon Peak faced assaults from the forces of the Old Gods. It was invaded by the Enraki, led by the Harbinger Athlas. This resulted in the devastation, the loss of wildlife, and even the corruption of the sons and daughters of Cenarius. Meanwhile, Stone Talon also emerged as a significant battleground during the following Alliance Horde conflict. Now that we've explored the transformative events in the Stone Talon Mountains following the Cataclysm, it's an opportune moment to delve into the changes within the Charred Vale and the events that unfolded during that period. The Charred Vale was selected as a prime venue for one of the main events organised by the Mechanical Engineers Guild of Azeroth, also known as MEGA. MEGA, an association of engineers, arranged competitions and races to showcase their mechanical creations, including things like speedboats. In the Stone Talon Mountains, this MEGA event drew in numerous spectators, including Monty Gaslow, the current period. The Charred Vale was selected as a prime venue for one of the main events organised by the Mechanical Engineers Guild of Azeroth, also known as MEGA. MEGA, an association of engineers, arranged competitions and races to showcase their mechanical creations, including things like speedboats. In the Stone Talon Mountains, this MEGA event drew in numerous spectators, including Monty Gaslow, the current trade prince of the Bilgewater Cartel. Prior to Jaster Gallywix's departure from the Horde, Gaslow served as the official goblin leader of Ratchet. As Gaslow and his crew prepared to depart for the races, they were approached by Aramar Thorn, the young Lakeshire boy featured in a previous tale concerning the lore of Feralus and Dire Maul. You can find a portal to that story in the description below. Aramar requested to accompany Gaslow and his friends on their journey from Tanaris to the Charred Vale, akin to hitching a ride in Azeroth. Gaslow and his crew agreed, escorting Aramar Thorn and his companions aboard the Cloud Kicker from Tanaris to the Charred Vale. Once they arrived, and after bidding farewell, Gaslow left them in the Vale, him and his crew continuing on to the location of the Mega event. Aramar and his friends proceeded northward through the smouldering Vale for several hours. During their travel, an attempt to heal a withered tree was made by Tarindrella, a young dryad that sprouted from the seed of Thalis when Aramar Thorn submerged the acorn in water. Unfortunately, her efforts proved futile due to her young age. Maneuvering around dragon nests, they eventually found themselves surrounded by black drakes and whelps. A drake seized Mikasa Flintwill, only to be vanquished by the sentinels from Thaldarar Overlook, prompting the other dragonkin to flee the scene. Amid the turmoil sparked by the Cataclysm, the newly appointed war chief, Garrosh Hellscream, exhibited a more aggressive stance in the ongoing conflict between the Horde and the Alliance. Fueled by the Horde's dire need for resources, Hellscream directed his forces on a rampage through Ashenvale, seeking crucial supplies. This aggression spilled over into the neighbouring Stone Talon Mountains, when Horde forces, led by Overlord Cromgar and General Grebo made a strategic move to establish dominance over the entire region. They perceived that the Thaldarar Grove, a historically peaceful place of learning shared by both Night Elves and the Tauren, as a potential threat to the Horde's interests. They believed that the Grove concealed a weapon capable of harming their faction. High Chieftain Cliffwalker, stationed at Cliffwalker Post in the Stoneteller Mountains, strongly opposed Cromgar and Grebo's suspicions. He sent his son, Orthus, to uncover evidence to disprove these claims. Tragically, General Grebo killed Orthus, and unfortunately for him left evidence that linked him to the murder. Upon discovering his son's fate and the massacre of the Druids at the Grove by the hands of General Grebo, Cliffwalker confronted him. Their confrontation ended in the High Chieftain's favour, resulting in Grebo's death. Infuriated by his second-in-command's demise, Overlord Cromgar retaliated by travelling to Cliffwalker Post and set it ablaze. The fires that burned Cliffwalker Post to the ground also resulted in the death of Cliffwalker's wife, Marsha. In a devastating move, Overlord Cromgar, determined to eliminate what he believed as a threat in front of the High Chieftain's eyes, orchestrated the catastrophic bombing of the Thaldarar Grove, and he did so without the permission of Warchief Hellscream. The explosion obliterated the peaceful sanctuary, leaving destruction and chaos in its wake. Upon learning of these horrific events, Warchief Hellscream took swift and severe action. He arrived at Cliffwalker Post by portal and immediately confronted Cromgar. Garrosh questioned if he had ordered Cromgar to kill innocent people and wreck the lands meant for the Horde's benefit. Of course, Garrosh had not ordered these killings, and Cromgar had acted on his own. Afraid of Garrosh's anger, Cromgar cowered while Garrosh scolded him, recalling the lessons about honour he had learned from Varrock Sauerfang in Northwood. Garrosh told Cromgar that his actions had brought shame to the Horde and the Orcs. Hellscream grabbed Cromgar by the throat, relieved him of his duties, and ultimately executed him for his heinous actions. The catastrophic bombing of Thaldarar Grove remains a dark and haunting moment in the history of Kalimdor, and unfortunately foreshadows the events that followed, such as the later bombing and destruction of Theramore. Following the upheavals caused by the Cataclysm and the ensuing conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, the tales from the Stoneteller Mountains seemed to dwindle once more. With Azeroth's denizens rallying against the Burning Legion during their third invasion, attention shifted away from these mountains for a final time. Among the few stories that emerged after the Legion's crusade had ended are the tales of Huntress Jaelin. Stationed at Stardust Spire in Ashenvale, Jaelin holds a leadership position dedicated to safeguarding Alliance allies and thwarting Horde advances across Kalimdor. Even after the Fourth War on Azeroth, Jaelin continued to lead the Spire and persistently patrols the Ashenvale border with her Sentinel warriors to this day. According to Horde accounts, they decisively dismantled every siege weapon the Horde attempted to bring from the Stoneteller Mountains. As a warning to their adversaries, the remains of the destroyed machines and the bodies of the engineers were left at the Spire's doorstep. In the intricate narrative of Azeroth's history, the Stoneteller Mountains unfolded a saga woven with harmony, conflict, and sacrifices. It all began with Thrall and Jaina seeking wisdom from the Oracle at Stonetalon Peak in their quest to shape the destiny of their people in this mysterious realm of Kalimdor. Throughout time, this once tranquil terrain bore witness to relentless turmoil. Amidst the whispers of peace, clashes of swords echoed across the landscape. The coexistence between Night Elves and Tauren faced trials from the encroaching forces of the Venture Company, and of course the malevolent Grimtotem tribe. The Charred Vale's beauty succumbed to greed and devastation, where the Super Reaper roamed and the Harpies met a tragic end in the volcanic eruption. The tragedies suffered by High Chieftain Cliffwalker and the innocents lost in the bombing of Thaldarar Grove left scars across the land and in the hearts of its inhabitants. As the echoes of battle subsided and the winds of conflict shifted, the Stoneteller Mountains endured, a testament to the resilience and fortitude of its people. From seeking guidance at Stonetalon Peak to enduring the horrors of war in Thaldarar Grove, this land's legacy embodies both valour and sorrow. As we bid farewell to this chapter, let us remember the sacrifices made and the lessons learned within the storied Stoneteller Mountains. May the whispers of peace and the Welcome back to the library, everyone. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of World of Warcraft's history. We're going to uncover the secrets of Mulgore. Situated in the heart of central Kalimdor, Mulgor's lush green plains serve as the ancestral homeland of the Honourable Tauren. Surrounded by the towering Stone Talon Mountains to the north, this landlocked territory shares borders with several prominent regions in Azeroth, including Desolus, Feralus, Dustwallow Marsh, and the Barrens. A striking feature of this picturesque terrain are the lofty cliffs of Thunderbluff, looming majestically over the surrounding fields at the very—
Dude, I'm listening to lore about WoW. I'm listening to the storylines about the zones that I'm in.
heart of the zone. Mulgor stands as a serene haven, cradled within a tranquil valley, embraced by towering mountains on every side. However, beneath its exterior lie tales of turmoil and strife, narratives that we shall delve into in this very tale. The tale of Mulgor reaches back to a distant past, preceding the cataclysmic events of the Great Sundering, when the Night Elves—
Trying to complete these last few quests before I go to bed, though.
Of Kalimdor. These elves, devout followers of the Lord of the Forest, a revered druidic demigod named Cenarius. While the exact origins of this demigod remain veiled in mystery, his legendary stature demands acknowledgement in our narrative today. In the intricate lore of ancient Tauren mythology, it is believed that the Earth Mother, an immortal entity of profound significance, bestowed upon the ancestors of the Tauren the gift of hunting prowess. Among their prey was Aparo, the elusive white stag, known also as the ancient guardian Malorn. Driven by their pursuit, the Tauren ancestors relentlessly hunted across the expanse of Azeroth until the stag sought refuge in the heavens, where his majestic antlers became entwined among the stars. Legend holds that the moon goddess Elune took notice of the stag, and upon aiding him, she found herself captivated by his presence. Their union resulted in the birth of a demigod, Cenarius. Though Cenarius was born of Elune, she entrusted him to Malorn, recognizing that he belonged to the mortal realm. Thus, Cenarius, a being of both sky and earth, came into the care.
Let's see if I can get any action.
His emergence reverberated through the Emerald's dream, prompting the green dragon aspect of Sarah.
I don't even think I can solo the rare.
Guiding him through the verdant splendor of Azeroth's wilds. Cenarius, imbued with a profound connection to the natural world and its creatures, devoted his life to safeguarding the balance of nature and nurturing the lands he called home. Among the creatures that thrived in the plains of central Kalimdor, under Cenarius' watchful gaze, were the Yongle, beings who shared in the abundance of the land alongside their guardian.
The big Kahone, the big
between 12,200 and 12,000 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal, the robust Yongle race inhabited central Kalimdor. However, discontent brewed among the Yongle as they found themselves forced
These little
to
guys
share
are
their
easy to
hunting
kill.
grounds with neighboring trolls.
The big one is going to be tough.
They embarked in pursuit of unclaimed territory, eventually encountering the borders of the formidable Mogu Empire.
Here we go, here goes nothing.
The merciless Mogu Emperor, Xian, the Yongle, was subjected to enhancements of flesh shapers, augmenting their strength, ferocity, and intellect.
That's so
the vastness of the Mogu Empire's history warrants its own extensive recounting. The Mogu endured generations of oppression until they joined a collective revolt and contributed to the Empire's downfall.
Oh my God, yes.
Upon regaining their freedom, the Yongle found themselves adrift. Their cultural heritage of preservation of oral traditions. Some of them clung on to the fragmented tales of Cenarius' benevolence, while others sought to forge a new path by sheer force of will. Against these divisions, they migrated northward, while others opted to remain in their adopted lands. The third faction returned to central Kalimdor.
Ooh, yeah, buddy.
With
He
Cenarius.
does.
Those who chose to study under Cenarius embraced the teachings of druidic magic, attuning themselves to the rhythms of the natural world. Conversely, others delved into the mastery of shamanism. The arcane energies emanating from the Well of Eternity catalyzed a transformation among these central Yongle, birthing a new lineage of bovine creatures known as the Tauren. Over time, these Tauren splintered into various tribes and dispersed across the lands. It wasn't until the Dragon Mage Coriolstras persuaded the High Mountain Tauren to align themselves with the Night Elves and other races in the fight against the Burning Legion during the War of the Ancients. The Tauren proved invaluable allies during the battle conflict. Following the conclusion of the War of the Ancients, the cataclysmic events of the Great Sundering, which shattered the subcontinent of Kalimdor, 80% of its landmass was submerged. emerged beneath the vast sea, isolating certain Tauren tribes from one another. In the aftermath of this upheaval, surviving Tauren continued their tranquil existence within the central regions of the now fragmented
the
and
for the
diminished
100th
continent
time.
of Kalimdor. Legend has it that the Tauren
Vengeful
roamed the
ancients
forest and the plains
still
of
out there
Kalimdor,
somewhere.
living in symbiosis with nature for thousands of years. One such peaceful expanse being the plains we know today as Mulgore. For years, the Tauren dwelled in tranquility upon the sprawling plains of Kalimdor, up until a formidable adversary emerged from the neighbouring lands. Among these neighbouring territories lay one particularly revered region, the lush grasslands of Masha-an-Shi, known in our language as the Loom of the Earth Mother. Drawn by subtle elemental murmurs, the Tauren came to believe that beneath these meadows slumbered the Earth Mother herself. After decades of endeavouring to awaken her, Tauren shamans finally succeeded, only to realise with horror that their efforts had roused not the benevolent Earth Mother, but the colossal Earth Elemental, Princess Theridrus, daughter of Therazane, the Stone Man, utilising the verdant surroundings for sustenance. Theridrus absorbed energy from the life across the lands to replenish her weakened form. Thus, the once fertile and sacred land of Masha-an-Shi was transformed and renamed to Desolace. The catastrophic loss of life reverberated throughout Azeroth and even into the Emerald Dream. Zeta, son of the Forest Lord Cenarius, journeyed to Desolace to investigate. However, instead of imprisoning Theridrus as planned, Zeta fell in love with her. Their union gave birth to the Centaur, resulting in a tragic cycle of conflict. After slaying their own father, the Centaur multiplied rapidly, driving the native Tauren from Desolace and sparking a prolonged period of darkness and strife for the Tauren race. Despite this, continuing on with their nomadic settlements across the lands, the lives of the Tauren shifted with the seasons, yet they remained united by a common hostility toward the marauding Centaur. Despite enduring relentless attacks, the Tauren stayed true, and they despised war, but they did meet aggression with resilience. Each year brought either a year of peace or a year of conflict, and the Tauren embraced this cyclical existence as the only life they knew. For the Tauren, this way of life persisted until the era of the Third War. While conflicts ravaged the Eastern Kingdoms, the tranquil plains of Kalimdor shielded the Tauren from the turmoil. However, their isolation ended with the arrival of the Horde upon Kalimdor's shores during the Third War, thrusting the Tauren into the modern way of life that we are all used to today. Our narrative now shifts to one of the most revered leaders among the Tauren, Cairn Bloodhoof. As chieftain of the Bloodhoof tribe, Cairn epitomized strength and leadership. Despite the weight of age slowing his stride, Cairn remained resolute in his commitment to safeguard his ancient people from the relentless Centaurs. He harbored a steadfast hope of leading his tribe to a new homeland where they could thrive in peace. Cairn's outlook shifted when he encountered Thrall, the young war chief of the emerging Orcish horde. Witnessing Thrall's valor in battle against the Centaurs, Cairn was intrigued by the horde's blend of nobility and ferocity. Thrall's quest for destiny resonated deeply with Cairn, prompting him to guide the horde northward, helping them with their quest of finding an oracle. In exchange for revealing the oracle's location, Thrall pledged to safeguard the Tauren caravan's journey to the tranquil plains of Mulgore. Together, crossing the land, they successfully evaded and defeated the attacking Centaurs, reaching the safety of Mulgore. Cairn then directed Thrall to the oracle's location within Stone Talon Peak before they parted ways. This encounter marked a pivotal moment in the Third War, leading Thrall and the Horde to meet the Guardian Medivh in the Stone Talon Mountain caverns was a turning point, signalling the beginning of the conflict's end. If you want to find out more about the story from the Stone Talon Mountains, you can refer to our dedicated tale on the peaks via the safe portal provided in the description below. After centuries without a homeland, the Tauren finally had a territory to call their own. Atop the windswept mesa of Thunderbluff, Cairn built a sanctuary for his people, welcoming the Tauren from all tribes. Cairn's son, Bane, accompanied his father and the Tauren when they settled in Mulgore. As time passed, the disparate Tauren factions rallied under Cairn's leadership. While some tribes still held differing views on the nation's trajectory, most of them acknowledged Cairn as their wisest and most capable guide towards a shared future. But this newfound era of peace and tranquility did face its fair share of challenges. Cairn acknowledged that the nomadic customs ingrained in Tauren society actually posed a threat to their survival. With their numbers relatively small and their wandering way of life, they remained susceptible to assaults from the Centaur, Quillboar, and various other races. His visions would come true when a band of Centaur, led by Kirag, attacked the Tauren village, capturing his son Bane and imprisoning him in their encampment. This event plunged Cairn into a state of despair, rendering him unable to lead and leaving the Tauren vulnerable for further attacks by the Centaur. When Rexxar, one of the Horde's esteemed champions, and his companions arrived in Mulgore seeking Cairn's aid against the invading Kultirans, Cairn expressed his inability to assist, citing that his spirit had been broken. It was then that Cairn's faithful second-in-command, Tagar Bloodhoof, urged Rexxar to seek out Boven Wind Totem and his outcasts to help locate Bane. With the assistance of the outcasts, Rexxar located Kirag's camp, eliminated the Centaur threat, rescued Bane, and returned him to his father's embrace in Thunderbluff. Cairn's joy knew no bounds, as he thanked Rexxar for breathing new life into him and pledged his forces to join the battle against the Kultirans. Sometime later, in the 25th year after the opening of the Dark Portal, the peaceful settlement that Cairn had provided for the Tauren race began to lead to an increase in the Tauren population across the region, with thousands of young Taurens starting their journey in Mulgore. Though the noble Tauren were peaceful in nature, the rites of the Great Hunt were venerated as the heart of their spiritual culture. Every Tauren, warrior or otherwise, sought identity both as a hunter and as a child of the Earth Mother. Tauren who reached the age of maturity travelled to Camp Narash, where Chief Hawkwind would send the new adventurers on quests to test their skills and prove themselves in the wilds of the Red Cloud Mesa, the name for the rolling plains atop the high cliffs in southern Mulgore. This newfound lease of life resulted in the expansion of the settlement of Thunderbluff into the grand city many Horde adventurers had seen with their own eyes. The Tauren had established the city as the centre for trade caravans, travelling artisans, and inventors of every kind. The proud city also stood as a refuge for the many hunters who stalked their dangerous prey through the barrens and its surrounding areas. Long bridges of wood and rope spanned the chasms between the mesas, and each mesa topped with tents, longhouses, carefully painted totems, and spirit lodges. The mighty chief Cairn Bloodhoof presided over the bustling city, ensuring that the united Tauren tribes lived in peace and security. This period of tranquility and safety was soon disrupted by the arrival of the small green troublemakers, the Goblins. Several years after establishing themselves in Kalimdor, the Goblins expanded their control over the region. Some Goblins came together to create the Venture Company, a formidable Goblin-run cartel notorious for exploiting Azeroth's natural resources. Affiliated with the Trade Coalition, this company extends its operations to various corners of Azeroth. On Kalimdor, they are active in regions like the Stone Talon Mountains, the Barrens, and notably, of course, Mulgore. The Goblins demonstrated remarkable skill in logging, with Mulgore drawing particular interest to them due to its numerous water wells. They swiftly took control of 3 wells in the region: the Thunderhorn Water Well, the Wildmane Water Well, and the Winterhoof Water Well. This sparked outrage among the Tauren upon discovering that their sacred water sources were being exploited by the Goblin menace. Responding swiftly, Tauren forces were dispatched to confront the Goblins, whose size disadvantage led to their quick retreat from the area. The Venture Company Goblins were not the sole outsiders drawn to the tranquil plains of Mulgore. A scouting contingent of Gallic Centaur were also spotted roaming the area. This came as a surprise, as the Gallic Centaur were not native to Mulgore, but hailed from the Thousand Needles instead. Alongside the Goblins and the Tauren's sworn enemies, the Centaur, an unlikely group of individuals also sought to benefit from Mulgore's resources. The Dwarves of Baal Modan, situated in the southern reaches of the Barrens, also took an interest in Mulgore. These dwarves were in central Kalimdor, excavating an ancient Titan complex and research facility beneath Baal Modan. It is likely that numerous relics and much knowledge lie deep beneath the surface. In a bid for expansion, these dwarves dispatched small contingents to the neighbouring region of Mulgore, establishing the Baaldun dig site to unearth the area's secrets as part of their lifelong quest for historical knowledge. Just as they confronted the Venture Company Goblins, the Tauren faced the challenge posed by these new invaders. Viewing it as a disrespect to the Earth Mother, Bane warned the dwarves that they were disturbing the Earth spirits in the lands of Mongol. The dwarves did not listen to this warning. The Bloodhoof tribe spearheaded efforts to expel these intruders, resorting to confiscating and destroying their pickaxes when diplomatic negotiations faltered. Concurrently, the Tauren coordinated with Horde operatives to engage with the Harpies, Quillboar, and Gnolls also inhabiting the Red Cloud Mesa. Despite their utmost respect for the Earth Mother and the lands they lived off, the Tauren tribes often feuded and warred among themselves, vying for control of the united Tauren tribes. The most significant feud arose between the Bloodhoof tribe and the Grim Totem tribe, spearheaded by the Grim Totem matriarch, Magartha Grim Totem. The Elder Crone and the matriarch of the once mighty Grim Totem tribe was a powerful shaman and cunning leader. She emerged as the chief rival to High Chieftain Cairn Bloodhoof for the leadership for all Tauren. Unable to oust Cairn through political means, Magartha resorted to treachery. The Grim Totems believed that Magartha would lead them in eradicating the lesser races from Kalimdor and the reclamation of the ancestral Tauren lands. Constantly disagreeing with Cairn's leadership and the direction of the Tauren's future, Magartha felt that she was the only one fit to rule her people. In a tale that has been recounted elsewhere, Rhaegar Earthfury was a successful gladiator slave master who owned Logosh, known to us as the Lost King of Stormwind, Varian Rin, during his bout of amnesia. Logosh fought in gladiator tournaments alongside Valeria Sanguinar and Broll Baremantle. The amnesiac human eventually led Rhaegar's team to victory in a Crimson Ring tournament at Dire Maul, earning Rhaegar a substantial fortune in gambling winnings. Following the tournament, Rhaegar took his team to Thunderbluff to find a Tauren gladiator to replace Valeria Sanguinar, whom he had sold to another gladiator master. On their journey, the human, dubbed Logosh by spectators at Dire Maul, a name which had stuck, and his teammate, Broll Baremantle, requested to visit the Pools of Vision in Thunderbluff. They hoped to find answers through a ritual there. Logosh sought to recover his lost memories, while Broll hoped to communicate with the spirit of his deceased daughter. Rhaegar granted their request, and as they set off for the Pools of Vision, he went to visit his friend, Archdruid Hamul Runetotem. Magartha approached Rhaegar, suggesting several young Tauren who would be strong candidates for his battle train, including her own granddaughter and several grandnephews. While Rhaegar considered this proposal, Broll and Logosh went to bathe in the pools. It was here they were approached by a large cave elemental summoned by Magartha, but Logosh emerged victorious, and the pools helped him recall some of his lost memories. In an attempt to discredit Cairn, who had been hesitant to disturb the elemental without understanding its motives, Magartha praised Rhaegar's champions for achieving what the great Cairn could not. Many years later, after the conflict with the Lich King, Thrall relinquished his position as war chief of the Horde, and Garrosh Hellscream succeeded him. Hellscream had been accused of orchestrating the murder of innocent druids, a deed actually carried out by orcs loyal to the nihilistic Twilight's Hammer sect. Enraged by these killings, Cairn challenged Garrosh for leadership, and with the aid of Magartha Grim Totem's manipulations, Garrosh emerged victorious, resulting in Cairn's demise. Following Cairn's death, Magartha orchestrated the infiltration of Bloodhoof village and seized control of Thunderbluff for the Grim Totem tribe. The Grim Totem tribe's assassins infiltrated Thunderbluff, targeting skilled weapon masters, powerful druids, and shamans. Their assault focused on the Spirit Rise, where members of the Skychaser clan were ruthlessly slaughtered. With the support of the Forsaken below, who aligned with the Grim Totem tribe, the attackers also targeted the Hunters on the Hunter's Rise and other individuals capable of wielding arms. By doing so, they instilled fear among the remaining Tauren. However, the Grim Totem's reign was short-lived. Through the combined efforts of Jevon Grim Totem and Jaina Proudmoore, Bane rallied an army and acquired the necessary weaponry to confront the Grim Totem within Thunderbluff. In a decisive counterattack orchestrated by Bane, utilizing a fleet of Zeppelins to strategically divide Magartha's forces, Thunderbluff was retaken, and Bane assumed his rightful position as chieftain of the Tauren. With stability restored, Thunderbluff once again stands as a beacon of peace and security for Kalimdor's Tauren. Magartha and her followers were exiled, banished across the land, while Jevon, now leader of the remaining Grim Totem who did not partake in this attack, pledged the tribe's allegiance to the Horde, and they were allowed to continue to reside within Thunderbluff. After inheriting his father's former role, the true heir to the Tauren throne, Bane Bloodhoof, resumed his peaceful reign. Shortly prior to the events of the Cataclysm, the Bilgewater goblins aligned themselves with the Horde's forces throughout Azeroth. Following Bane's assumption of the role of the High Chieftain of the Tauren, his already frosty relationship with War Chief Garrosh Hellscream deteriorated further. Despite Cairn Bloodhoof's death at Garrosh's hands, Bane had opted not to seek revenge, prioritizing a unified leadership within the Horde. Understanding the need for a strong leader to ensure the Horde's survival, Bane believed Garrosh could provide inspiration to his people. However, tensions rose as Garrosh began making increasing demands on the Tauren people. One such demand was access to Mulgor's untainted sacred water supplies, as the Horde's new goblin allies had polluted much of the water near Orgrimmar with their industrial activities in Ajara. Bane was hesitant to grant Garrosh's request, and Archdruid Hamul Runetotem was even more opposed. After a contentious discussion, Bane reluctantly agreed to the demand on the condition that a Tauren representative would oversee the goblins' operations going forward. After the resurgence of Deathwing the Destroyer and the ensuing cataclysm, tensions between the Alliance and the Horde heightened, particularly in the southern central regions of Kalimdor. In a bid to bolster their offensive against the Horde, the Alliance launched an assault on a Tauren encampment in the southern barrens known as Camp Terayo. The attack originated from Northwatch Hold, spurred by false intelligence suggesting an impending Tauren assault. The resulting destruction, termed a massacre by the Tauren, occurred after the Alliance ensured the evacuation of civilians under the command of General Hawthorne. Despite efforts to minimize casualties, some individuals perished while attempting to flee. Bane Bloodhoof acknowledged the camp as a legitimate military target and commended Hawthorne's decision to spare civilians. Nevertheless, dissent within the Alliance High Command arose, with some advocating for more aggressive tactics such as hostage taking. Subsequently, the camp was subjected to firebombing by Wildhammer Griffin Rider mercenaries, leading to its destruction. Alliance forces seized weaponry and dismantled smithing facilities, dealing a significant blow to their adversaries and disrupting the Horde operations. The Tauren military refrained from retaliation until assurances were made for the safety and the evacuation of civilians from the camp. Survivors, along with refugees from Honest Stand, sought sanctuary at Camp Unify in the Overgrowth. However, the evacuation was fraught with peril as many fell to the hostile bristleback Quillboar. Following the Alliance attack, the route from the Barrens to Mulgor was barricaded by the Tauren. They constructed the Great Gate to ward off potential Alliance incursions into their peaceful territory. Although the Great Gate faced attacks from Alliance siege engines and soldiers, it was successfully defended by the combined forces of Orcs and Tauren stationed at Vendetta Point. In the aftermath of the Cataclysm, the dwarves of Baeldun Digside met their demise at the hands of agitated earth spirits, validating Bane's prior warning. Following Armo Thunderhorn's guidance, Horde agents were dispatched to pacify the spirits using a magical drum. The recent Cataclysm brought significant alterations to the Red Cloud Mesa, which endured substantial damage as it came under siege from the Bristleback Quillboar, who expanded thetheir territory from the Brambleblade Ravine. Garrosh Hellscream and Bane Bloodhoof, both now leaders of their respective people, spearheaded the invasion to eradicate the local Quillboar. Additionally, numerous bristleback Quillboars abandoned their traditional habitat to assist in seizing new territory from the Tauren in a location called the Thornsnarl. At the same time, Grimtotem rebels, unwilling to pledge allegiance to Jevon Grimtotem and Bane Bloodhoof, took over and poisoned the sacred water wells in the region. In response, the Tauren were asked to help push back the bristleback Quillboar, while the Tauren accepted aid from all Horde members in dealing with the Grim Totem and other threats to the area. Despite often escaping the devastation
as soon as you
of
get to this
wars across
location, then I'm
Azeroth
going
over
to
the years, Thunderbluff fell prey to the Burning Legion.
Wherever
During the
this
Burning
question
Legion's
mark
third
is.
invasion of Azeroth, Thunderbluff was targeted by Infernals.
it's
Fortunately, they were
probably
defeated,
proving
and the city stood strong as the capital city for the Tauren
Said the
and a
case.
base for
So
all
then I'm
Horde
out.
members. During the battle for Azeroth, a contingent of the
If
Venture
so, then
Company
I will get
goblins
there
returned
tomorrow.
to Mulgor
Yep, and
with
that's what it's
considerable
looking like.
force, targeting the belongings of Sheza Wildmane, a Tauren who operated the Elder Rise drum shop in Thunderbluff. With resources acquired from this raid, or from selling the stolen goods, the venture company goblins established a camp in Mulgore once again, this time just east of Thunderbluff. And around the same period, Thunderbluff hosted a feast for the High Mountain Tauren from High Mountain on the Broken Shore. The entire city celebrated the discovery of a long-lost Tauren tribe with fireworks until it came under attack by minions of the Old Gods, who sensed the presence of Spirit Walker Ebonhorn, the uncorrupted son of Deathwing himself. The Old God forces attempted to corrupt the aspect of the Black Dragonflight and trapped the city's civilians with void power, rendering them unresponsive. Horde adventurers, along with Bane.
Mr. Duck, I'm sorry to say, I'm actually going to bed right as we speak, right as I was about to click end stream. You said hello, so I just want to say hello. Thank you for coming through. I hope you have a good night, buddy. Peace out, everybody who's watching. We'll see you tomorrow night. Peace out.